Chapter 284. Everyone was shocked by such a shocking scene. While flying, Wu Taiyu's sigh was not loud, but it floated in the air above the desert and could be heard from far away. There was a commotion among the crowd. There was only one person that Wu Taiyu called Brother Kong, Silver Moon Kongda. But never underestimate the heart of a martial artist who was determined to die. This Wu Taiyu is indeed strong. Maybe he doesn't need our help this time. A martial artist said casually. A hint of warmth appeared in Kongda's eyes, and a silver Aquarius appeared in his hands, and he threw it to Xiaowu. Anyway, these things will benefit others. If you die, you keep it. The awe-inspiring aura enveloped the entire area, and the martial artist's limbs went soft. The figure floating in midair at the top of the hill in their eyes was like a god. Xiaowu stared blankly at the sky where Kongda had just died, and on his wooden face, 2 streaks of tears hung. He suddenly knelt down and kowtowed 3 times towards the spot where Kongda had stood blankly. But Kongda laughed. This life of mine is enough. What happens after death, what does it matter? To be able to end this life with a spectacular battle, I have no regrets. I know. Kongda looked at the round moon in the sky. I just don't want the legacy of Silver Moon to end with me. The martial artists instantly revealed looks of excitement. Earthen Bear Wave. Give this to us, we can still kill Tang Tian and the rest. Another martial artist was a little jealous. The blood moon was blocked by the bear's paw, but the blood moon was like a sharp wheel spinning at high speed, sinking into the bear's paw at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, half of the blood moon had sunk into the bear's paw. There was no pain on Kongda's face but a smile. The injuries on Kongda's body without a year and a half would definitely not heal. Came to die? The youth was stunned. Brother Kong, why did you come? You seeking your own death like this, and it puts me in a difficult position. The bear shadow, which was injured, was extremely ferocious and roared continuously, its other palm grabbing towards the blood moon. Wu Taiyu also knew that it was a matter of life and death and roared, kill. Kant, who had lost a lot of blood, raised his face, burning with fanaticism like a silver wolf howling at the moon. Suddenly, Kongda's expression changed. With a wave of his hand, an invisible force pushed Xiaowu's body several hundred feet away. Kant warned. If others knew that the inheritance of Silver Moon was in Little Five's hands, they would do anything to get it, and Little Five's life would be in danger. Take a good look at Silver Moon. The green-clothed youth stared blankly at Kongda, dumbfounded. Is old thief Kang's brain stuck in the door? Isn't that courting death? No one knew about his battle with Kant. Today there were countless of martial artists following behind him, and the victory under the watchful eyes of the crowd would definitely spread to every corner of Lupus constellation. When the time comes, everyone will submit to him and he can create an even stronger feudal marshal. In the distance, a proud figure appeared on a sand dune. He would definitely win this battle. The crowd was intimidated. Even the middle-aged martial artist wearing the bamboo hat was shocked speechless. The blood moon buzzed lightly and the sound shook the surroundings, transforming into a misty moonlight mixed with a bewitching blood-red flowing light, straight towards Wu Taiyu. A palm struck out. The blood moon wailed sorrowfully and then exploded without any warning. In a mass of blood light, the blood moon disappeared along with a bear paw. Kongda was here. A blurry figure as huge as a mountain appeared on Wu Taiyu's back. It was a bear. The huge figure, dark red eyes, the might of the overlord of the forest spread out. I am still injured too badly, an undetectable low groan as though it came from the depths of hell. Kongda's eyes flashed and his words were like thunder. After the initial shock he was secretly happy. In the eyes of the surrounding martial artists, Wu Taiyu's body suddenly released a heart-palpitating aura. His back view was like the overlord of the forest, unstoppable. But why not bear the humiliation and make a comeback? The green-clothed youth hesitated for a while and asked. The middle-aged martial artist under the bamboo had exclaimed, Ursa Minor Constellation. Silver treasure. So that's how it is. Puffs of blood mist exploded and strangely entered the full moon. The previously silver-white full moon had already become as red as blood. The middle-aged martial artist was silent. Xiaowu, whose eyes were red, picked up the silver Aquarius cabinet in the sand, and held it tightly in his hands, not saying a word. If Wu Taiyu loses to Tang Tian and the rest, you will follow Tang Tian and the rest to leave Lupus constellation. Kongda, you risked your life to attack, but it's just eso. Under normal circumstances, Wu Taiyu would definitely win. The bear shadow struck out with his palm, and the aftermath of the savage aura made some of the more timid martial artists' legs go soft and they fell on their butts. The martial artist who spoke just now suddenly had a glint in his eyes. That's Kongda's follower? Maybe I can get some benefits from him. Kongda has been the #1 person for so long, he should have some benefits. Kongda's body defied logic and slowly floated up from the ground. The full moon above his head was bright, and even the bright moon in the sky could not help but lose its splendor. Kongda did not have much of an impression of Xiaowu, except that he was dependable, although his strength was average, but he was brave, and the most reassuring thing was as long as he was given a task he would complete it without any hesitation. At this time the sky was getting darker and the silver full moon behind him became more and more eye-catching. His face was sinister and the true power in his body surged. The middle-aged martial artist under the bamboo hat sighed with a tinge of respect and sadness. Kongda already has the determination to die, and is specially here to meet his death. In front of him stood a simple and honest young man in cotton clothes. His appearance was simple and ordinary. "You two go, I'll watch," the boss said. After personally seeing Wu Taiyu's strength, he also felt that this task was very easy. To be able to defeat Wu Taiyu, such a strong martial artist, would never appear in Lupus constellation. Kongda's heart flashed a tinge of regret. His body, like dust, crumbled and disappeared in the air, disappearing without a trace. Wu Taiyu's face also changed. He did not expect Kongda to risk his life right from the start. Both of his palms suddenly expanded with silver light. A savage and ruthless aura suddenly exploded. The middle-aged martial artist said with some disappointment and sadness, "Because Kongda knows he has no chance of winning. To endure humiliation for the greater good is not to struggle at death's door. Only when there is hope will we endure humiliation for the greater good. We are wolves, struggling at death's door is a disgrace." Wu Taiyu was currently meditating to recover that fierce bear shadow guarded by his side, although it was incomplete, but that heart-palpitating savage aura still made everyone at the scene not dare to move. The silver full moon floated above his head. The full moon had traces of fresh blood. It was exceptionally beautiful. Kongda looked at the round moon in the distant sky and was somewhat in a daze, not knowing if the full moon 1,000 years ago was like today. The young man in green was shocked and blurted out, "Wu Taiyu is already so strong that Kongda can't see any hope?" A layer of blood surfaced in his eyes and the aura around him changed. Suddenly, the round moon hanging low in the sky increased in brightness. A bright light beam directly entered the blood moon above his head. He finally understood how Wu Taiyu defeated Kongda, so it was because of this silver treasure of Ursa Minor constellation. Wu Taiyu's feudal marshal originally walked the path of being overbearing and fierce. The unique domineering aura of a bear was very compatible. Although he still did not know which silver treasure of Ursa Minor constellation, but this treasure in Wu Taiyu's hands was rather terrifying. His body suddenly exploded into a blood mist, as though the blood mist was attracted, and entered the full moon. Immediately the silver full moon was covered with a layer of faint red. It was actually Wu Taiyu. He looked at Wu Taiyu's smoke-like figure below, and a sinister smile surfaced on his lips. He did not have any intention to speak. Even if it was a drop of power, he was not willing to waste it at this moment. Wu Taiyu immediately noticed Kongda and his pupils constricted. "Xiao Wu, why did you follow?" Kongda sat on the top of the sand dune. The dry wind blew past his face. His face was clear. Behind him was a silver full moon quietly suspended. The silver full moon surfaced traces of blood. It was unusually ruthless and bloodthirsty. Kongda raised both his arms, looking up. A fanatical look surfaced on his face. "Pa pa pa." In the crowd, a few martial artists looked at each other and revealed a smile. Wu Taiyu's face had already returned to normal and said proudly, "Seems like old Kong has not given up, humph. If I can defeat him once, I can defeat him a second time. This time I must make him sincerely convinced." The shadow of the bear slowly disappeared. Wu Taiyu ignored the splitting pain in his palm and laughed wantonly. The blood moon pierced through the bear palm, but was blocked by another bear palm, and the blood moon once again entered the bear palm. just that this time the moonlight on the blood moon had already thinned to almost nothing. Kangda was defeated and heavily injured. The once powerful silver moon immediately fell apart. In front of Kangda there was only Xiao Wu left. Xiao Wu had followed him for a long time, but he was usually not liked by Kangda. His talent was ordinary and he was quiet. Among the experts under Kangda he was extremely inconspicuous. The sky was nearing dusk and the moon was already clearly visible. Following his figure flying very quickly there were many figures on the sand dune. Bang! Brother Kong? The blood moon's light rays exploded. Kangda said without turning his head but immediately laughed. He had actually entrusted the silver moon's inheritance to Xiao Wu. Was this the end of the road? The two of them were overjoyed and immediately chased. Xiao Wu stubbornly shook his head. There are many desert vultures. Xiao Wu stammered. This subordinate is not here for that. Xiao Wu shook his head. Master cannot die without someone to send him off. If Tang Tian and the rest are defeated, you must immediately leave Lupus Constellation. Seeing the green-robed young man's dejected face, the middle-aged martial artist said indifferently, both of you watch this battle carefully. Forged with fresh blood, sacrificed to the silver wolf, without a breath, the body burns to ashes. Qi. The number one person of Lupus Constellation, always has the pride of being the number one person of Lupus Constellation. The middle-aged martial artist said indifferently. Wu Taiyu's roar was like thunder. The three great inheritances of Lupus Constellation, Heaven Hook, Silver Moon, Feudal Martial, are actually one family. You must be surprised. Lupus Constellation's inheritance, Heavenly Martial Werewolf Seal, was split into three branches roughly 1,000 years ago. The three families fought openly and secretly for 1,000 years, rising and falling with ups and downs, but never ending. The inheritance of Silver Moon cannot be destroyed in my hands. Train well, even if you can't, don't worry too much. Some things are life. Everyone raised their heads, looking at the black figure on the highest sand dune. Kangda slowly stood up. The silver full moon behind him quietly floated up. Xueqing followed Wu Taiyu's gaze. His face changed and exclaimed, Kangda. Chapter 285. Belle skillfully asked for a cup of plum juice, and casually found a corner to sit down. Gathering information was a job that required patience. She had been doing this for many years, and the experience of a silver onyx soul horse was not easily obtained. The silver liquid followed Ling Su's thoughts and quickly became thin, and in the blink of an eye, it wrapped around the silver spear. Is this the silver transformation? The size of the tavern was astonishing, with 3,000 tables spread out in rows. It had the grandeur of a large-scale academy's cafeteria. The tavern was not full, but there were many people sitting in groups of 3 to 5, and it was bustling. The backing of the Steel Horn Tavern was an elder of the Onyx Soul, adding that there were strong martial artists stationed all year round. No one dared to create trouble here. Because of that, it became the safest place in Yong'an City. Once the Yong'an blood was injected into the body, the martial artist could enter Yong'an City from any star door of the spirit region. So other than the pain, the silver transformation had such benefits. Ling Su felt an extremely fine silver liquid entering his silver palm. That was the power of the silver transformation. Ling Su's gaze swept across the room and finally landed on a huge hammer weighing over 400 pounds in the corner. It was probably used by some martial artists to train their strength, but it seemed like it had not been used for a long time and was covered in dust. Would he have died from the pain then? He started to use bandages and carefully wrapped them up. He used a lot of strength, and many times, the bandages could help to stabilize his spine and alleviate the pain. Ling Su stared blankly at the ground full of steel powder, his heart in turmoil. The pain on Ling Su's face gradually disappeared. The security of Yong'an City was not bad, since it was Onyx Soul's territory. But the people in the city were not only Onyx Soul's people, there were many other powerhouses martial artists. For a Blood Soul city of Yong'an City's scale, it could produce about 300,000 drops of Yong'an blood, which meant that Yong'an City could accommodate 300,000 people. And this was just the silver spear's surface silver transformation. She suppressed the shock in her heart, called for the waiter and bought a set of information. A rough voice reverberated in the tavern. Ling Su clenched his teeth. The power of the medicinal liquid continuously invaded his body. Needle-like pain spread throughout his body. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks and into the medicine barrel. He felt as if a lifetime had passed. The silver liquid could only travel through the silver-enhanced area. Ling Su, do your best. Ling Su somewhat understood, but he suddenly had a bold idea. Since only the surface of the silver spear was silverized, he would spread the silver liquid thinly and wrap it around the spear. Interested customers asked the waiter to buy a set of information for 5-star coins each. It was quite detailed. As for those guests who came from other places, they began to whisper to each other and discuss. The silver transformation had already started to corrode his bones. Ding Dang did not have any interest in reselling the Yong'an blood. She came here to scout for information. As it was Onyx Soul's stronghold, Yong'an City had many Onyx Soul horses and everyone exchanged information here. He felt an indescribable sense of danger from the silver liquid. Belle was already used to it. The tavern quietened down. Belle drank her plum juice, not even bothering to lift her eyelids. Every day the tavern would open a betting stall. This was a gathering place for information and was well informed. The betting stalls were also very strange. The huge hammer directly exploded in front of Ling Su into a cloud of powder and iron shavings. The flying iron shavings left countless small holes on the wall. Another example was an aristocratic family's marriage alliance, betting on whether someone would snatch the bride. Ling Su held onto his spear and stood looking at the young man in the mirror. He said softly. At the same time, on the walls of the tavern, the words Tang Tian versus Wu Tai Yu appeared. He rubbed his shiny silver fingers. A drop of Yong'an blood. Belle was stunned for a moment. His hair was like strands of extremely polished silver silk. Even his eyelashes had turned silver. Suddenly Ling Su's heart skipped a beat and he grabbed his silver spear. Of course he knew how powerful it was. If he was an expert in fists, palms, fingers and claws with one finger and one palm, the opponent would turn into dust. Ling Su's reflection in the mirror suddenly laughed. He was amused by his own ridiculous and hilarious thoughts. Staying with this crazy young man for too long, it would indeed pull down one's intelligence. Ling Su's orange pupils stared at the silver liquid. In a blink of an eye, the number behind Wu Tai Yu jumped to 200,000,000, and the number behind Tang Tian was only 150,000. Ling Su did not instigate any true power. His index finger lightly touched the surface of the steel shield. Chi like stabbing tofu, his index finger completely entered the steel shield. The silver liquid was like a silver droplet after melting silver. If the entire silver spear was silver and 10 drops of silver liquid entered the tip of the spear, the power Ling Su dared not imagine. He suddenly realized this silver spear was most likely an antique left behind by the silver frost mounts, specially made for silver transformation. This meant that the wager on Wu Tai Yu's victory was already 2 million star coins, and the wager on Tang Tian's victory was only 150,000 star coins. But the silver liquid was not damaged at all. The jet black liquid was like a monster wriggling and rolling. His body was trembling unnoticeably, his eyes tightly shut, enduring the immense pain. Ling Su could not help but be startled, a strange light flashing in his eyes. Iron Horn Tavern, a pair of large iron horns, hung at the entrance of the tavern. A cold aura struck the iron hammer. For example, someone who wanted to break through to Sword Saint, opening a bet on whether he could succeed or not. Ling Su was enlightened. This steel shield was extremely tough. He needed to inject more than 50% of his true power, to be able to use his fingers, to achieve the effect he saw. He raised his fingers, chi. In the blink of an eye, the shield was densely packed with holes like a beehive. The silver fingers closed together, gently waving his palm. Only when the bandages completely covered his body did he stop. Belle's heart sank. He stood up and stood in front of the mirror. The silvery white metallic luster, covering his deformed body, presented a twisted and bewitching beauty. Only that face, other than being a little whiter, there was no other abnormality. Ling Su raised his palm. The previously jet black palm was now as slender as a lady's slender hand. That eye-catching silver made his palm look like a work of art. And this was just a drop of silver liquid. The silver liquid swiftly entered his finger. It stopped in his index finger. Ling Su's eyes glimpsed a metal shield at the side. It was a common desert cavalry shield. The shield was not big, with a diameter of about 0.5 meter, and could easily be tied to the arm. Its entire body was made of steel. The shield was carved with a camel pattern. Without waiting for Belle to react, the number behind Wu Taiyu, on the wall of the tavern, started to jump rapidly. Bang! The sheep horn wind bells had improved his pointed sea spear to a whole new level. The degree of silverization had greatly increased. His skin, flesh, blood and tendons had all been silverized. Even the surface of his bones had some silver spots. Belle glanced around without batting an eyelid. There was nothing out of the ordinary. So strong. What exactly was the silver liquid? Ling Su was also shocked by the astonishing power and was dumbstruck. A 400-pound metal hammer was not difficult to pierce, nor was it difficult to smash, but to be able to instantly shatter like this, the power required was terrifying. He recalled his own silver spear was also constantly being silverized. At the start, in his eyes, the silverization was like a tenacious virus, constantly eroding everything he came into contact with. But after that he realized, other than the silverization spreading throughout his body, the silverization could also occur was his spear. But after the initial shock, Ling Su also regained his senses. He understood that he was just thinking about it. The silverization of the silver spear was much slower than the silverization of his own body. After his entire body was silverized, he reckoned that this silver spear was not completely silverized. After a while, the medicinal liquid in the bucket gradually calmed down. The jet black liquid became clear. Selling information, buying and selling items, discussing business, etc. All sorts of things that one could think of could be found here. Today's opening for the Battle of Lupus Constellation, there are two parties to bet on. One is Tang Tian's side, the other is Wu Taiyu's side. No limit of star coins. Everyone show your abilities, make a huge profit and make money rolling in. Fire Wolf Tribe. Bang. The silverization of the silver spear was very low. Only a thin layer of silverization was on the surface. But even so, the silver spear looked even more dazzling than before. Ling Su tried to inject the silver liquid into the silver spear, but very quickly met with resistance. Below the surface of the spear, the silver liquid was unable to penetrate. Gently exhaling a long breath, a bead of perspiration rolled down the bridge of his nose. His silver eyelashes trembled, his eyes slowly opened. The orange-red pupils did not have the anger and intensity of the past. It was unusually calm. Ling Su's expression congealed, hesitated for a while. He activated 50% of his true power. His index finger fiercely pierced the steel shield. After the silverization of his body, it would produce a silver liquid. This silver liquid could freely flow through his body, unlike true power which could only flow along the meridians. Now in his body he could at most condense one drop of silver liquid. The silver-white metallic luster and the strange scene formed by the deformed body disappeared. The young man in the mirror regained his usual handsome looks, the calm orange eyes slowly heating up, flames rising. A sharp sound pierced through the air, an almost undetectable trace flashed past. The steel shield suddenly exploded in front of him, exploding into a cloud of steel dust. Suddenly, dang dang dang, a series of gong sounds rang out in the tavern. Just coming out of the medicine barrel, his spine had already started to ache. The pain brought by the silverization was extremely intense. If not for Ling Su's current willpower, which was much stronger than before, he knew that he would find it hard to bear. Then she could no longer bear it. Her face changed. Yong'an City was the Blood Soul City. The so-called Blood Soul City was a stronghold of Onyx Soul using blood meridians and martial spirits in the spirit region, and was also one of Belle's most active strongholds. She only needed to spend some contribution points to obtain the qualifications to enter Yong'an City. The Honorable Martial Alliance had the Honorable Martial Plate, while Onyx Soul had the Blood Soul City. Both had their own merits. Reselling Yong'an blood was also a profitable thing, just that it was a little more difficult. He extended his finger. In a moment, a drop of silver liquid seeped out of his silver fingertip. Belle, who was well versed in this, had a bad feeling. She was an old hand and had rich experience. Normally, the first to make a move were usually the people with the most insider information. These people were completely not optimistic about Tang Tian. Chapter 286. All along, Lupus Constellation had always been under the control of the Lupus people. For an experienced person like her, as long as she had money, she would not leave any traces behind. There was not much information, but she still managed to find some clues. Tian Zishi, Heaven Road, list rank 9370. Huai Bai Hua was not moved. You don't have to beat around the bush, just speak your mind. The man under the bamboo hat chuckled. I'm curious, how did you find me? Belle understood the market. To hire the three of them it would definitely cost a lot. Heaven Road grade martial artists normally could be hired for 300,000 star coins a day. So when Wu Guang heard Tang Tian asking for 1 million a day, he agreed without hesitation. And when it came to the Heaven Road list martial artists, it was another price. Mao Jun's fee was at least 2 million star coins a day, and Bai needed 3 million star coins, and Tian Zishi's fee was at least 5 million star coins a day. Uncle Shi smiled and nodded. Not bad, not bad. Jing Hao was overjoyed. That's great. Disciple will go too. That makes sense. Belle nodded approvingly, but in her heart she was laughing coldly. The Southern Cross Army had long fallen into the hands of the boss, and everyone was clear of Uncle Bing's background. There's no smoke without fire. The Southern Cross Army was so strong in the past, they would not have left nothing behind. Uncle Shi laughed out loud. Hey, Uncle Shi, I want to find out something. Belle said lazily. You guys? Who are you guys? Huai Bai Hua had a look of anticipation and asked leisurely. The uncle had white hair, was around 40 years old, his clothes were tattered, and he was drinking a cup of cheap wine looking rather relaxed. I'm from Onyx Soul. The man said. The Honorable Martial Sect was an extremely powerful method of sending people to the Honorable Martial Alliance, but the price was extremely high and the quota was extremely limited. This time the teacher had given up his face to fight for it. Huai Bai Hua's heart shook and for the first time he lost his composure. Suddenly he thought of Tang Tian's background as an honorable martial artist, and finally realized that he was involved in the dispute between the three powerhouses. And by Heaven Road list rank 9503. Belle and Uncle Shi were talking about the time when Belle was being followed, but the two of them did not care much about it. Belle had long found out that those people were all killed by her. Belle was not as poor as she was in the past, although Tang Tian looked like he was stingy, but he placed great importance on information, and the funds in Belle's hands were plentiful. It was a pity that this time the Lyra treasury these old fellows were unable to enter. This made him somewhat worried. At this moment a gong suddenly sounded and another name appeared on the wall, Huai Bai Hua. The cost for the three of them was at least 10 million star coins a day. Heaven Hook Huai Bai Hua, one of the three big shots of Lupus constellation. Your name is well known and no matter where you go you cannot hide your glory. The man said respectfully. The three of them had been in Lupus constellation for more than 10 days, and had already spent 100 million star coins. Jing Hao sat obediently in front of an old man. This old man with white hair and beard was his teacher. The newcomer was a man of about 45 years old. His appearance was average and couldn't be any more ordinary. He had a smile on his face and bowed respectfully. Mr. Huai, I'm so happy to see you. Belle's face congealed. This meant that not only was the other party wealthy, his background was not simple. She was not clear about other people, but Tian Zishi, she had some understanding of him. If he was not someone with some background, it was impossible to invite him. Tang Tian has the background of the Honorable Martial Alliance. The clan union is still somewhat fearful, and does not wish to have any conflict with the Honorable Martial Artists. Uncle, you sneered. It's a pity that the clan union is a group of nouveau riches. They do not know that they have long been infiltrated by us and the Honorable Martial Alliance. They thought they had kept it a secret, but they did not know that everyone already knew. How could the Honorable Martial Alliance sit and watch? Tang Tian and his people are not weak people. The man's expression was calm. We just need Mr. Huai to hand over Tang Tian to us. In exchange, we are willing to give Mr. Huai a star treasure that is not inferior to the earthen bear wave. Other than that, we will send experts to support you. Seeing his beloved disciple's unhappy face, the old man could not help but laugh. You don't have to worry. Amauri and the rest have been improving at a godly speed. They should be training. Although the man's face was filled with respect, Huai Bai Hua knew that he did not have the authority to reject. Jing Hao had just seen the four of them. Their improvements far surpassed the other martial artists of the same generation. Humph. I will not bicker with you about this. But the things that I have inquired about today, you better not play games with me. Belle said. You can't. The old man rejected. The Lyra treasury is about to open, how can you leave? Belle pretended to be surprised. You're talking about the Southern Cross Army's treasures? Belle's expression was calm, but her heart was in a perilous state. Tang Tian had never hidden his motive for heading to the Southern Cross constellation. She did not see the saint treasure of the Southern Cross constellation, but she guessed in her heart that the news was 80% to 90% true because she had the same guess. Belle stared at him. Uncle Yu, we have known each other for so many years, and you actually did not tell me anything about it. Jing Hao's expression was solemn. Your disciple will not let you down. Huai Baihua was deep in thought. Suddenly he asked, who is the person behind Wu Taiyu? The person behind the scenes was determined. Wu Taiyu's aura is so overbearing. What will Mr. Huai do? The man's face was respectful, but his words were sharp. Wu Taiyu is narrow-minded and Mr. Huai is a noble person. You will not live under someone else's roof. There will definitely be a battle. Then why are you guys here? I don't believe that a mere Wu Taiyu will attract your interest. Huai Baihua chuckled. Belle pointed to the wager on the wall. I want to inquire about this. Huai Baihua had already guessed it. But hearing the other party admit it, his eyes under the bamboo hat squinted. He said, I never thought that Tang Tian would actually be related to Onyx Soul. The old man raised his hand. This is not negotiable. But Belle had already calmed down. She stood up and glanced around. Finally, her gaze landed on a middle-aged uncle in the corner. Her eyes lit up. She walked to the uncle's table and sat down. A fellow called Di Han. Uncle, you said. He was a small pawn of our organization. After Star Wind City he disappeared. I never thought that he would run to the clan union. I heard that the saint treasure of Southern Cross constellation is in Tang Tian's hands. Relax. We will not sit back and watch. The old man laughed. Since Tang Tian has joined us, we will definitely not let him be bullied. But the Honorable Martial Group does not have a stronghold in Lupus constellation. It is impossible to send a large number of people. But I asked Elder Gu for 4 spots for the Honorable Martial Sect. Business. A chuckle came from under the bamboo hat. Let's hear it. The middle-aged martial artist looked at the person in front of him. The bamboo hat covered half his face. No one could see the changes in his expression. Jing Hao's expression was high-spirited. He was full of confidence. Teacher, relax. Your disciple has some ideas about the sword. I will definitely be unparalleled. Oh, little girl, you're here. I knew that group of people would not be able to do anything to you. Uncle Yu smiled. His square face already had wrinkles. He looked rather old. The tavern was in an uproar. Everyone was discussing. Uncle, she revealed a look of surprise and sized Belle up. You're actually interested in this matter? Huai Baihua knew that he would not speak the truth. He did not mind. He said leisurely, you spent so much effort to find me. It can't be just to say a few nice words, right? Belle was familiar with the 3 names. She had even met Tian Zishi before. The 3 of them were famous bounty martial artists. They did not belong to any powerhouses. The difference between bounty martial artists and assassins was that as long as they had enough money, they would accept any mission. The 3 of them were extremely powerful. They were all experienced bounty martial artists. You have sharp eyes. The man was still respectful. I have come to find Mr. Huai. I wish to do business with you. The 3 of them actually appeared in Lupus constellation. They were even by Wu Taiyu's side. It was obvious that they wanted to deal with Tang Tian and the rest. The man was secretly shocked. To be able to dominate a region, they were not simple people. With just a few words, Huai Baihua had taken the initiative without batting an eyelid. The respect on his face did not diminish. We are here for Tang Tian. With the 4 of them supporting him, he was much more at ease. Belle revealed her snow-white teeth. My dear Uncle Yu, I have prepared 1,000,000 star coins for you. Let's see if you have the real deal. Such a place was useless to Onyx Soul. It was not only Onyx Soul. Honorable martial artists and the clan union were not interested in Lupus constellation. You should have heard of the legend of Southern Cross constellation. It has been around for a long time. The treasure of Southern Cross constellation contains a huge secret. Uncle Yu laughed. Uncle Yu had a face of helplessness. You did not come to the tavern for that period of time. And with that group of small shrimps, how could they be your match? Jing Hao anxiously said. But, Mao Jun Heaven Road list ranked 9632. Belle looked at the information in her hands. She looked at it very carefully. She was extremely sensitive to information. At her age, without any background or power, to be able to become a silver-rank onyx soul horse was not an easy thing to do. A suffocating feeling that a storm was brewing. It made his heart extremely depressed. Lupus Constellation, which had been peaceful for a long time, had become the battleground of the three powerhouses. It was easy to imagine that the following conflict would be extremely tragic. The man laughed. We wish to help Mr. Huaibai. Both sides will take what they need. The old man saw Jing Hao and relaxed. You better look after yourself. Tang Tian's character is simple. His improvement in strength is faster than all of you. He has even created a unique martial technique. His ranking has also soared. Don't let him pull away from you. Honorable martial alliance. Uncle, you said. Seems like our onyx soul has people who cannot hold back. Clan union. The man said. Lupus Constellation was just a small constellation. Among the southern sky's 42 constellations, it was ranked towards the back. And Lupus Constellation was not a newly developed constellation. It had a long history. Their resources and minerals had long been investigated. Lupus Constellation was famed for its barrenness. And the blood meridians of the Lupus people had been researched by countless people in Onyx Soul. They did not have much value. The old man nodded. You have always been steady. I am the most assured. But this time, the matter of the Lyra treasury concerns the fate of our branch for the next 20 years. You must be careful. Chapter 287. The expenditure of an army was huge. It was a bottomless pit. The crucial point was that even with money it could not be done. This was because tactical talents were hard to come by. These years, the tactical talents of an outstanding mercenary group were treated as treasures by every powerhouse. Seems like we've reached the end. Mao Jun's face was full of vexation. The stronghold in front of him was endless. The scout just now had slipped in here. Two groups of people drew two arcs and quietly approached the two from behind. An army. Wu Taiyu stopped. Tang Tian was surprised. He's injured. The other group, the blade auras, rained down on Mao Jun. Mao Jun dodged continuously like a madman. The blade auras rolled forward. Mao Jun was battered and exhausted. The clothes on his body were tattered. And Bai's mood was also extremely bad. This group of people are too despicable. They actually dared to kidnap people under our eyes. Especially when it spared no effort to run, it was like an angry flame. And Bai only felt his eyes darken. Half of the sand dune exploded into the sky. Like a sand screen, even the sun was covered. Although Tang Yi's tactical attainments were not as high as Bing's, but he did not discount orders at all. This fellow was incorruptible, his personal strength was unmatched. The warriors of the tribe were all fearful of him. His low intelligence made him unusually inflexible, but to deal with these rookies who had no relevant training, he was the most suitable. Another scout sprinted over. He was carrying an injured and unconscious young man. The scout was sweating profusely, but his expression was extremely excited. He shouted from afar. He fell not far from me, so I picked him up. Tang Yi's gaze was fixed on the two in his eyes. The two who were sprinting extended out two dotted lines, intersecting at one point. I don't know. The scout shook his head, but he's very strong. Another breakthrough. Tang Tian touched his chin, a look of contemplation. Hua Tianhai was a little annoyed. If not for his sister going out to carry out a mission, he would definitely be among these people. The martial artists behind him quivered. They did not forget the training these few days and immediately adjusted their positions. In the blink of an eye, a standard pointed triangle formation appeared behind Tang Yi. 15 feet behind them, two sharp triangles of the same size formed. This change was being transmitted layer by layer. The martial artists behind him, all of their accumulated true power, seemed to have been gently pulled out, pouring down. Without thinking, they all slashed out. Tang Yi was a gold-class staff sergeant. In Bing's eyes, these sloppy, stupid and low-quality cannon fodder were currently receiving Tang Yi's training. Tang Yi was a gold-class staff sergeant and had a solid foundation in tactics. The reason why Bing wanted to organize all these cannon fodder was because of his occupational OCD. He did not plan to waste his time on the cannon fodder. He had high hopes for the future mechanical army. With a slight tug or two, he was like a picky diner, pushing away the food that didn't taste good and tossing it to Tang Yi. Just that. Why would Lupus Constellation have an army? After a few days, it already looked somewhat presentable. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses could be heard. Assault. That's right. Tang Tian clapped his hands. Stab him to death, stab him to death. Ling Su has won my heart. The Fire Wolf tribe bred a breed of horses called Flaming Steps Horse, classified as a 6th-level star spirit beast, and had a strong sprinting ability. There was actually an army here. And they were obviously well trained. Tian Hai mumbled twice but did not dare to make a sound. Although the two masters were strong but their minds were too simple. And the only intelligent Master Crane was in closed-door training. Mommy run. According to the Southern Cross Army standards, this Lupus army was obviously not up to standard. In the Southern Cross Army, every small combat unit would have an officer as the main attacker, to guide the others to attack. And his current position should have been taken up by the more valiant sergeant commander. In the process of sprinting, he had always used his own chi and position to guide the rookies. Why were tacticians so precious? Because tacticians could use their own chi and martial spirit to guide the team's attack rhythm, to gather the strength of the team. Kong Da's subordinates are running towards us, and there are 2 people chasing after them. The scout quickly reported. Kong Da's silver moon should be in their hands. Tang Yi, who was on the horse, was expressionless. Such a result to him was a tragic sight. Bang! And Bai's heart moved. We will sneak over at night. If we meet Tang Tian and the rest, we will run. He took the lead. Unknowingly, the formation of the troops had an indescribable feeling. Everyone became one. The blade was like a cold moon, silent. Suddenly a scout sprinted over. Tian Hai suddenly stood up, his expression congealed. What's the situation? Bai and Mao Jun's faces changed. Another blade aura like raindrops whizzed over from behind, but this time there was no gigantic blade aura, no terrifying chi. He did not dare to stop. A small silver shield appeared in his hand and he threw it behind him. The 2 of them did not notice that Tang Yi, who was training far away, had discovered them. Tang Yi did not have any doubts towards Bing's orders and faithfully carried out these tactics. Ling Su said impatiently, "Who cares if he breaks through or not? Stab him to death with one spear." If not for him, these rookies who had just trained for a short period of time would definitely not be able to launch such a powerful attack. The martial artists behind him loudly agreed. Kill. The small shield transformed into a silver light shield about 30 feet in size, shielding Bai's back. When the distance between the 2 of them was 200 meters, Mao Jun and Bai were immediately alerted. Although Bing did not care about these cannon fodder, but out of perfectionism and professionalism he still designed a few simple tactics for these cannon fodder. These tactics were based on the basic tactics of the Southern Cross Army, and after some improvements, they were more suitable for these martial artists who grew up in the desert. Tang Yi raised the zanbato in his hand. His face was cold and indifferent, his long eyes squinted, the intersection point became clearer in his eyes, the lightly buzzing zanbato as though it was hungry and thirsty, his wrist lightly shook, a Grandmaster grade blade technique suddenly released. That kid actually fainted at the feet of the Fire Wolf tribe's scout, and the 2 of them underestimated the leg strength of the scout's horse. The 2 of them had never been to the desert before and had very little understanding of the desert tribes. The desert tribes were experts in breeding horses, their leg strength was astonishing, and their endurance was outstanding. The horses that the scouts were equipped with were the best of the best. When it involved the army, even the strongest bounty hunter would definitely be very cautious. But such a sudden attack made everyone excited. Kill. Tian Hai's attention was attracted by the shouts from afar. He looked enviously at the martial artists who were training. These martial artists were the tribe's most elite martial artists, and now they were gathered together receiving formal training. Bai and Mao Jun were running wildly, both of their faces pale, wishing they were born with 2 more legs. They were indeed Heaven Road list martial artists, but against the army, which was a professional human tactical unit, they had no chance of winning. Tang Yi's face was calm without a ripple, his squinted eyes flashed. As a gold-rank staff sergeant, he was one of the best among the staff sergeants of the entire army. Although the fighting style had changed, but the training given to him by the recruit camp did not decrease one bit. Scuculus Constellation's silver treasure. Silver ray shield. He did not dare to stop for even a moment. If he was stuck by the opponent, he would die. Tang Yi was simple. Seeing the two of them, he knew they were enemies. Without hesitation, he commanded the troops and quietly approached the opponent. After these few days of training, the people under him already knew the basics of teamwork. No. Wu Tianhai was Hua Er's younger brother. After Hua Er left, he was in charge of gathering information. Wu Taiyu did not hide his tracks at all. Although Kang De made him suffer a small setback, but he seemed to have a breakthrough, did not advance but stopped. The zanbato that was dragged by his side lightly trembled, and the misty blade aura slowly lit up. The small team behind him, immediately as though they were injected with chicken blood, followed closely. To be able to organize the battle tactics of 30 people, every one of them was worth a lot. Tang Yi only bellowed, "Follow." When Tang Yi rushed to a distance of 500 m away from the opponent, the entire team had already completed their formation change. Seeing that, Tang Yi bellowed without hesitation, "Kill." Tang Yi bellowed like thunder and slashed down with his blade. The first thought that came to their minds was, they were tricked. The zanbato that was as big as a door was raised high like a battle flag. The oncoming impact was like an avalanche, causing the two of them to be scared out of their wits. Such a formation, such training, other than an army, what else could it be? Wu Tianhai's heart immediately palpitated. Silver Moon was one of the top inheritances of Lupus constellation, but he did not act rashly. Where did the two people chasing us come from? A handful of yellow sand hit his body. It was extremely painful. Anbai, who was running in a panic, suddenly felt a dazzling light aura behind him. His face turned pale. Without thinking, he suddenly shot out to the side. Anbai's face was completely drained of blood. He only had one thought in his mind. "Let's go." Mao Jun shouted, seeing Anbai's face of unwillingness. "Don't tell me you still want to go in and snatch people? Who said that this mission was as easy as a field trip? Who said that this mission was to pick up scraps?" When they received the mission, the information given by the employer did not say that the opponent had an army. If they knew that the opponent had an army, no matter how much money they were given, they would not do it. The two of them, who were in a panic, completely did not notice that, unknowingly, they were running towards a direction. The two of them were scared out of their wits. They only felt that there were enemies everywhere. The martial artists behind Tang Yi, all of them could feel the dense fighting intent from their commander, and all of them followed Tang Yi's rhythm, activating their true power, and all of them pulled their scimitars in unison. Bang bang bang. Fuck, in this place where even birds don't shit, they actually met an army. The two groups of people were like two arcs of fire, suddenly rushing towards the two of them. The flaming steps horses instantly entered the sprint stage. The soft sand dunes did not have any effect on the flaming steps horses. These martial artists grew up in the desert. They were extremely familiar with this kind of terrain. The rain-like blade auras smashed onto it. The light shield shook violently, but it did not shatter. After 3 waves of attacks smashed onto it, the light shield finally shattered. A dazzling and biting cold blade aura brushed past his body and entered the sand dunes that were 10 meters away. Following behind it was a bunch of different colored blade auras like raindrops entering the sand dunes. Unexpectedly, the effect was surprisingly good. Mao Jun felt that this idea was not bad. The two of them were extremely confident of their own strength. Sneaking in at night, even if it was not effective, they could at least find out the actual situation. Mao Jun and Anbai were extremely depressed. They did not expect that the duck that was in their mouths would actually fly away. Chapter 288. To enter a blood soul city like Yong'an, you need to be in a spirit region. Alright boss, now focus, grab hold of that thread of connection and then silently pray for Yong'an in your heart. Just at this time, with a plop, Anbai's lower body fell into the sand, his head flying far away. His luck was too bad, he was coincidentally among the 3 figures that the blade aura swept past. Sai Lei snorted. Will normal people have red and blue eyes? Belle was dumbstruck. It can't be, I was just saying to reimburse. Sai Lei leaned over and clicked her tongue in wonder. Interesting. 1 blue and 1 red, you really are a weird person. Sai Lei rubbed her chin with a look of surprise. Seems like it. I never thought that a hoodlum like you would have such a temperament. Before she finished, Tang Tian disappeared in front of her. The two of them had rich battle experience and knew that it was time to fight for their lives. Belle saw Tang Tian. Although she was surprised by Tang Tian's attire, she did not care about it and heaved a sigh of relief. Boss, I just happen to need to report to you 2 bad news. Wu Taiyu's backing is the clan union. They got it from a fellow called Di Han. The Southern Cross Constellation's Saint treasure is in your hands, and it involves the Southern Cross Constellation's treasure. The other bad news is Onyx Soul has also made a move. Their target is Huai Bai Hua, and their target is also the Southern Cross Constellation's Saint treasure. But the cold blade aura was faster than they had imagined. 6 and Bai, just as they ran 3 steps, the blade aura swept past the 3 figures on the right without any hindrance. Ling Su was shocked. For some reason he suddenly thought of the silver cavalry, and the strange song floating in the clouds. He shook his head, trying to get rid of these thoughts. He suddenly stood up, carried his spear and turned to leave, leaving behind a cold snort. Many against few. What's so strange about that? Blood meridians? Sai Lei's eyes revealed a strange look. She thought of all the weird things that happened to Tang Tian, and thought to herself, this matter should be investigated clearly. Mao Jun, who was running like a bolt of lightning, was also swept away. He let out a blood-curdling scream and a spray of blood sprinkled down from the sky. However, he did not stop. Instead, he increased his speed and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. His light gray lenses covered the abnormality of his eyes. What surprised Tang Tian the most was that the light gray lenses allowed his vision to return to normal. Let's go now, Tang Tian said. I understand. Belle nodded her head. Once this is over, we will go. It is not very far, roughly 3 days should be enough. I know a very powerful bloodline specialist. Tang Tian was puzzled. He scratched his head and said, I think it's very powerful. Your eye patch is too ugly. Sai Lei snapped her fingers. I'll get you something good. Seems like it. Tang Tian looked at himself in the mirror. This was the first time he had seen himself wearing glasses, and he felt a little unfamiliar with himself in the mirror. His physique was well proportioned with distinct edges and corners. Normally he would give off a strong and robust feeling, but the glasses made his contours softer and he looked somewhat refined. Thinking about that, Tang Tian became restless. At this time, Belle felt that she was in a mess. Could it be that the boss could not see that the situation was dangerous? Boss, can you please be more serious? That was the Onyx Soul and Clan Union. The lenses I use are gray crystals. When many people train in eye-related martial techniques, their eyes will show abnormalities. Most of them will use gray crystal glasses. Sai Lei said with a pleased face. Compared to your eye patch, the glasses are much more beautiful. Back. Belle's voice came from outside. Bing, who was walking to the door, coincidentally heard Tang Tian's fierce words. His heart trembled and quietly retreated back. Seems like the best way to buy a Northern Sky Constellation's silver armor. Housefly Cow, just from the name it was so fitting. There's some trouble. Upon talking about his eyes, Tang Tian felt vexed. He did not understand what was going on with his eyes. He took off the eye patch. Look. Belle was shocked. Boss, your eyes. Immediately she turned into a wisp of smoke and rushed towards the fallen enemies. This blade gathered the power of the 20 martial artists behind Tang Yi. The power was so strong that it exceeded their imaginations. Out of the 2 Heaven Road list martial artists, 1 died and 1 was injured. So I want to investigate. Tang Tian said, Onyx Soul has done a lot of research on blood meridians. I think they will definitely be able to find out what blood meridians flow in my body. Belle was taken aback. Blood meridians? Boss, your blood meridians? But if Pai Pa said it made sense, then it definitely made sense. Belle had always trusted Pai Pa's judgment. Pai Pa's eyes lit up. Boss, analysis is very logical. Dihan. Rain Man Dihan? Tang Tian was surprised. That rascal is actually still alive? Refined. Just by hearing it, one could tell that it was a cultured and intelligent word. Because they have misgivings towards each other. There is only one prey, but there are 2 hunters. The hunt will not start so soon. Tang Tian spoke frankly with assurance. He did not know that the current him was like a different person with an additional calm and collected aura. What do you mean by weird people? Tang Tian was unsatisfied. I am obviously very normal. Finished, she went into the workshop. After 15 minutes she came out with something in her hands. So I came to find Belle. Tang Tian said helplessly. The 2 of them knew that they could not fight head-on, and without hesitation, they used their ultimate escape techniques. Being praised by the intelligent Pai Pa, Tang Tian was elated, and could not be more pleased. With his hands on his waist, his nose in the sky, he laughed out loud. Huh. That is. This godlike young lad is actually very intelligent. Tang Tian took off his spectacles, revealing his red and blue eyes. The Honorable Martial Alliance also sold Northern Sky Constellation's armors, but all of them were extremely expensive, with the starting price being 100 million star coins. Tang Tian, who thought that he had some wealth, looked around and his heart felt a little weak. Such expensive things, buying them was not a big deal, but he had to buy the most suitable ones for himself. Boss seems to be more refined. Pai Pa was surprised. The commotion just now had already alerted many people in the tribe. When they ran out, they coincidentally saw Tang Yi's blade, and all of them were overwhelmed with shock. Belle took out a crystal test tube as though she was performing a magic trick. Inside was a drop of blood. This is Yong'an blood. Belle explained. Once Boss absorbs this drop of blood, he will be able to enter Yong'an City. The blood meridian specialist is living in seclusion in Yong'an City. Tang Tian and Ling Su were also stunned by Tang Yi's blade. The clan union and Onyx Soul, they are very strong. Belle could not help but remind Tang Tian, was the boss's brain still so bad? The other and Bai gradually disappeared in the air. Regardless if it was Belle or Sai Lei, they were all stunned by Tang Tian. Mao Jun let out a shrill scream as a blood-red swallow mark appeared on his back. His face was flushed red to the point where it seemed as though blood would drip out. 2 blood-red wings appeared on his back as his speed suddenly increased like a bolt of lightning. Belle removed the stopper of the crystal test tube and dripped the Yong'an blood onto Tang Tian's palm. In the silence, Tang Yi's indifferent voice came out. Continue training. It was not only him, Sai Lei and Pai Pa were also surprised. The Yong'an blood immediately seeped into Tang Tian's skin, and Tang Tian immediately felt an indistinct connection in his body. He joined the clan union. Belle said. Pai Pa and Sai Lei were surprised, causing Tang Tian to be extremely pleased. And Bai's most recent 6 clones was a consummate technique of the armor. Ash rope doppelganger. Tang Yi was expressionless. The horse he was riding on slowed down. He immediately raised his blade, not angry but showing his might. Tang Tian, who had been a country bumpkin for a long time, puffed out his chest and raised his head, trying his best to look cultured and intelligent. Belle is not back yet. Pai Pa coincidentally walked in. Hearing Tang Tian's words, she said apologetically, but she should be back soon. Tang Tian unexpectedly shook his head. Since you said that Onyx Soul and the clan union are involved, then this matter will temporarily not have any movements. Spectacles? Tang Tian was enlightened. He took the spectacles from Sai Lei's hands and wore it. Tang Tian understood, but he disapproved. Southern Cross Constellation's treasures? Hey, I did not even see a single star coin. Bing, that asshole spent so much of my money. Humph. He better not have any treasures, if not, I will make him spit it all out. What? Belle blurted out. When the blade light reached their bodies, the 2 of them who were sprinting suddenly realized it and were overwhelmed with shock. Tang Tian immediately forgot to act refined and was overjoyed. Ding dang ding dang. Belle did not know what to say. She did not understand the young man in front of her. How did he build up such a foundation? Did he not know his situation was precarious? Did he not know the strength of Onyx Soul and the clan union, how strong they were? When he returned to 3 Spirit City, Sai Lei saw Tang Tian's eye patch and was stunned. What happened to your eyes? Tang Tian said gloomily, I think it's a problem with my blood meridians. This drop of Yong'an blood costs 800,000 star coins, boss. You have to reimburse me for this. Tang Tian's eyes suddenly lit up with a weird cry. He jumped up. Spoils of war. And Bai's body flashed with a light aura, and split into 6 identical figures, suddenly sprinted in 6 different directions. She was extremely anxious, but the Tang Tian in front of her did not care at all. Belle, who was shocked by Tang Tian, was immediately confused. She completely did not know which boss was the real boss. He decided to first go to 3 Spirit City to find Belle to ask. Coincidentally, he had many doubts about his blood meridians. Heaven Road list martial artist had a lot of wealth. Other than a few miscellaneous things, the most important reward was a silver armor. Musca Constellations, Blue Billows Fly. After Tang Tian broke through to the 7th level, his strength improved greatly. That silver spirit spiraling energy in his body was too tyrannical. The Southern Sky Constellation's silver armor could no longer withstand his true power. Tang Tian's eyes lit up with a blazing light aura. He did not know what would happen if his fire scythe ghost claw met with Tang Yi's blade light. Tang Tian waved his hand. Who cares if they are strong or not, I will stab them to death. This time I came here for two matters. Tang Tian said directly. One, I want to understand what blood meridians I have. The other is, I want to buy a Northern Sky grade armor belt. Do you have any connections? When Tang Tian saw the armor, the first person he thought of was a Maori. Ling Su walked away and did not care about him. Chapter 289. That's true. Sima Xiao licked the crumbs on his fingers and said without a care for his image. If we have our own army, many things will be much easier. His sudden rise had caused the jealousy of the first and second branch, and in the family meeting he was transferred to Lacerta constellation. Lacerta constellation was one of the 19 continents in Northern Sky. The power was complicated, the local composition was extremely complicated, and the clan union did not have much influence there. Even a lion uses its full strength to fight a rabbit. The female martial artist said. Aren't you doing it now? Qiu Zhijun's eyebrows did not even twitch. Seeing that he was about to take down the entire Lacerta constellation, he was urgently transferred back to the main family, saying that he was going to be entrusted with an important task. But in truth, the first and second branch wanted to take the opportunity to reap the fruits. Yes. The female martial artist replied, turned and left. Sima Xiao was the son of the Sima family's third branch, Sima Tao. Sima Tao died young and Sima Xiao and his mother depended on each other, so the third branch had always been weak in the Sima family. An orphan and a widow naturally could not avoid being bullied, but Sima Xiao was like his name, even if he was bullied he would still smile. I'll give you another month. If you can't do this you can go home. Young master does not need trash. Army? What a joke. Lupus constellation has an army. The brown short-haired young man held onto his chin, his face blushing as he stared at his underlings, his mouth curling into an unspeakable ridicule. Don't find such a ridiculous excuse. I am now suspicious of your ability. It has been so long, and you still have not obtained the item. Now that Onyx Soul wants to join in, can't you see that the matter has blown up? This young master in this period of time has been ridiculed by many people. The situation changed when Sima Xiao was 14 years old. Sima Xiao, who had always kept a low profile, suddenly rose up in the family competition and obtained the third place. Sima Xiao's face was filled with grief. A talent dying young, this is a huge loss to our Sima family. I will prepare 2 gifts for the 2 branches, the 2 uncles, please don't be too sad. Who would have thought that Sima Xiao would be able to change the situation? In a short span of 3 years, not only did the clan union gain a foothold in Lacerta constellation, they had also firmly occupied 3/4 of Lacerta constellation's territory. Anbai had died violently and Mao Jun had lost an arm and was seriously injured. Such a result immediately caused an uproar among the people who were watching the battle. Anbai and Mao Jun were both powerhouses on the heaven list. It would not be easy for them to kill one and injure the other. But the news of Tang Tian having an army had long spread from Mao Jun's mouth. No one doubted Mao Jun's nonsense. The results were more convincing than anything else. It looked like the matter was instigated by Sima Xiao, but very quickly, the main characters would become Onyx Soul and the Honorable Martial Alliance. At that time the scene would probably be chaotic. Junior Brother's intention was clear, to fish in troubled waters. Tang Tian has an army that is an unstable factor. Qiu Zhijun said. The 6 guards were the 6 most outstanding warriors under him, and this woman was the leader of the 6 guards. Each of them had an extraordinary bloodline and their strength was formidable. Elder Tu did not expect that he would have to use his strongest force right from the start. The army is nothing to be afraid of. In front of him stood a female martial artist in armor. She said, if it was a real army Mao Jun would not have been able to escape. I think it was just formed not long ago and their strength is questionable. Why would I lose? The brown-haired young man laughed. What has it got to do with us? Zai Zi is second uncle's man, Onyx Soul's target is Tang Tian, and the Honorable Martial Alliance is protecting Tang Tian. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, losing would be a loss of face. Honorable Martial Alliance and Onyx Soul, who would be able to swallow that? Don't worry, we are just small farts, they will not even put us in their eyes. Lupus Constellation actually had an army. Sima Xiao was surprised. How can an army be so easily created? Just based on those small tribes, how can they create an army? Furthermore, even if they create an army, the first to be anxious would be Onyx Soul. At the bottom of the stairs, the masked man bent his back, keeping quiet out of fear. His back was drenched in sweat. Elder Tu thought for a moment, raised his head and said, "Good. You bring them and bring Tang Tian back." Sima Xiao purposely left a quarter of Lacerda constellation, because he knew that the two branches would not be able to resist and come out to plunder the peaches. In the past 3 years he did not kill all the powerful people of Lacerda constellation, but instead forced them to a corner of Lacerda constellation, but did not advance any further. He purposely gave them time to breathe. Furthermore, it must be known that there were many star doors that connected to Hercules constellation. "Aren't you afraid of losing?" Qiu Zhijun was shocked by his junior brother's plan. His junior brother's gaze was no longer on the Sima family. "The two branches are greatly weakened." Qiu Zhijun calmly analyzed the situation. "You plan to use the clan elders. If I hand this matter over to you, can you grasp it?" Elder Tu asked. At their position, they were not as fearful of armies as ordinary people. Although a strong army was powerful, but to experts they were not invincible. Qiu Zhijun acted as though he did not hear anything. The two branches suffered a defeat at Lacerda constellation. Sima Hong died in battle and Sima Yuguang was injured. He knew more than the average person. The masked man's heart trembled. He knew that his young master, under his smiling face, was a ruthless and cold heart. In a contest of strength there was no absolute strength. Senior brother is so smart. What does Lacerda constellation's contribution count for? Sima Zhao's mouth revealed a disapproving smile and his tone became relaxed. Our clan union has been established for many years, but has always been seen as a nouveau riche, and compared to Onyx Soul and the Honorable Martial Alliance, we are a head lower, and this is the worry of all the higher-ups. But they are extremely fearful of Onyx Soul and the Honorable Martial Alliance. In the end, they do not have enough confidence. At this time, if anyone is able to fight against Onyx Soul or the Honorable Martial Alliance, as long as they do not lose, the higher-ups will not turn a blind eye. They hate you to the bones now. Qiu Zhijun could not be bothered with his pretentious face. How could Hercules constellation tolerate the clan union's tentacles extending in? Qiu Zhijun was extremely clear of Sima Zhao's arrangements, and after thinking for a while he understood. Your goal is Onyx Soul and the Honorable Martial Alliance? Who are you planning to trick? Qiu Zhijun suppressed the shock in his heart and asked. Qiu Zhijun was his senior brother. Qiu Zhijun looked at his smiling junior brother, and silently calculated in his heart. Junior brother's plan has a high possibility of succeeding. It is not time yet. Sima Xiao shook his head like a rattle drum. My reputation is not enough. He did not dare to argue and did not dare to plead for leniency, and could only bite the bullet and say, yes. When the masked man walked out of the main hall, a cold breeze blew over, causing his entire body to feel cold, causing him to suddenly realize that his entire body was already drenched in sweat. Sima Xiao, who had returned to the clan, was rather peaceful. Other than occasionally visiting the clan elders who did not have any power, he stayed at home and rarely went out. But no one would have thought that without making a sound he would instigate the entire matter. We need all 6 guards. The female martial artist said. I know. The brown-haired young man laughed, casually taking a snack from the table, stuffing it into his mouth. He said unclearly, just use him to test the quality of Onyx Soul and Honorable Martial Alliance. Second uncle spent a lot of effort to arrange for him to join. Even if he dies, it will save second uncle a lot of trouble. He is already so old. If he still spends every day racking his brains, he will age prematurely. But for Tang Tian to have such a powerful tactician by his side, it truly makes me jealous. The foundation of the Honorable Martial Alliance is truly more profound than us. Sima Zhao's face was full of crumbs and he said unclearly. Elder Tu's face revealed a look of surprise. You think we need all 6 guards? Behind the screen, a pale-faced young man walked out. The young man looked weak. His clothes were as white as snow, loose and casual, his long black hair, but his eyes revealed a faint melancholy. What has it got to do with me? Sima Xiao snorted with a face of rashness. Call me back, I'm back. Let them take over, I agree. I am a role model, don't you smear my name. Sima Zhao's stunning performance, caused him to enter the eyes of the higher-ups of the clan alliance. But at the same time, it caused the other branches to be vigilant and fearful. The clan alliance was formed by all the big and small families, and the Sima family was one of the 7 aristocratic families of the clan alliance. He did not lie. The local powerhouses of Lacerda constellation were reorganized, adding the secret support of Hercules constellation. It was definitely a deep and bottomless pit. If the first and second branches bumped into it, they would naturally be badly injured. Army. Qiu Zhijun. Even in the clan alliance very few people knew of this name. Hehe. Sima Xiao did not have the slightest bit of awkwardness from being exposed and laughed. Ayaya, senior brother, your body is so weak. If you worry too much and die, who will help me take care of all these things? He had secretly built up an army and knew that it was not easy, so he disapproved of Tang Tian's so-called army. Sima Xiao was then sent to the Alcade Star by the family, who knew that in a short span of 3 years, the Alcade Star would advance by leaps and bounds, and the taxes they handed over would increase by more than 3 times. Not only that, in 3 years he had given away more than 7 veins of ore, and the clan elders all had a good impression of him. An old man who was as thin as firewood asked solemnly, "What do you think?" His brown hair was naturally curled, making his delicate and androgynous face look harmless. Even his tone was playful, as if he was teasing her. This old man was surnamed Tu, and was an elder of Onyx Soul. In Onyx Soul, the position of an elder was extremely respected. When the news of Southern Cross constellation reached his ears, he was moved. Qiu Zhijun shook his head and said indifferently, "They are not people from the Honorable Martial Alliance. The people that Tang Tian belongs to have rather indifferent personalities. They should be people from Tang Tian's own people. If the rumors are true, then the Southern Cross army left something behind. That is very normal. Go. The young master waved his hand and laughed. You have to fight a good battle to turn things around. Senior brother, don't use such an ugly word. Sima Xiao had a face of rascality. There are so many seniors, helping a junior like me is also a virtue. As for which senior is so kind, that will depend on the situation. Chapter 290. Little Belle, I don't have any good blood meridians recently. An old voice came out from a shelf not far away. Old Man Fei was overjoyed. He wanted to promote a few types of blood meridians, and immediately brought Tang Tian and Belle to tour his treasure room. Although absorbing blood meridians could increase the strength of the body, but Tang Tian still maintained a cautious attitude. Digesting the power of the blood meridians was not an easy task. 500,000 star coins. He was actually just testing the waters in his heart. Even if it was 200,000, he would do it. The first step is to test the strength of its energy undulation. Old Man Fei explained, this triangle energy plate was something I spent a huge sum of money to buy. Triangulum constellation is a northern sky-grade silver star treasure. After all these years of research, it has played a huge role. His words had a tinge of complacency. The triangle energy plate was truly a practical and useful star treasure. In truth, the price of the triangle energy plate was not high. If not, he would not be able to afford it. To be able to come up with the wave value method was completely because he had no other choice. He only had one star treasure and all of his research revolved around it. Double blood meridians? Old Man Fei was surprised. The blood in the test tubes were obviously more outstanding than the ones on the metal shelves outside. Every drop of blood released a unique qi, and Tang Tian could feel different powers from them. Normal people might overlook it, but Tang Tian's intuition was extremely sharp and could sense the minute details. Seeing that the blood was no different from a normal person, Old Man Fei heaved a sigh of relief. Normally, the more extraordinary the blood meridians, the more extraordinary the characteristics, and the easiest to show was the color. There are many methods. Once it came down to specialization, Old Man Fei became more spirited and started to talk incessantly. For example, the Ku family's evaluation method or the fixed value method, etc. Every expert who researches on blood meridians will have their own methods. For example, I like to use the wave value method. He suddenly thought of something. I have a subordinate from the lupus race. What kind of blood meridians would be better for him? Belle snorted. Boss, don't listen to his bragging. All of his blood meridians all have serious flaws. Until now he has never bred a perfect blood meridian. That's why no one dared to buy it. Bloodline. I've used the dwarf blood and the winged human blood. Tang Tian revealed a thoughtful expression. Being exposed in front of him, Old Man Fei was not angry and laughed. No choice, the blood meridians of the blue ice lizard race can be found in some of the blood meridians, but it is already very thin. However, even so, it was still very powerful. Those people are just cowards. If they had used these bloodlines, they would definitely know how trashy the bloodlines they have absorbed are. He took out a test tube from the cabinet. There was a drop of moonlight blood floating in the test tube. It floated quietly in the test tube, abnormally quiet. The old man glanced at the mask on Tang Tian's face and was not surprised. These days, there were many people who did not want others to recognize their faces. Especially with the glasses on the mask, it was indescribably strange. Tang Tian and Bao followed the sound and rushed over, only to see a white-haired old man wearing a gray apron, trying his best to place a bucket-sized crystal bottle on the metal rack. The crystal bottle was filled with a transparent and colorless liquid, with 10 little silver fishes inside, extremely agile. So powerful. Tang Tian jumped in shock. So powerful? The drop of blood was not only the color of the moon, even its shape was like the moon, but it was a crescent moon that had been bitten off. You must know there are many blood meridians now that have ancient blood meridians. Old Man Fei pointed to a test tube. Look at that drop of blue blood, isn't it beautiful like a sapphire? That is the blood meridians of the blue ice lizard race. This ancient race had already disappeared for close to 60,000 years. Its blood meridians contain extremely strong water affinity energy. Once you assimilate it, your body can even transform and reform like water. Upon entering Old Man Fei's treasury, Tang Tian immediately felt 10 different types of qi rushing towards him. He looked around in surprise. The treasury was not big, and on the cabinets all around, there were test tubes arranged neatly, and every test tube had a different colored drop of blood floating in it. The various uses of the triangle energy plate were all excavated by him to the extreme, and the wave value method was one such product. Who knew Belle's boss was rich and overbearing and did not even bargain? This caused Old Man Fei to have other ideas. He laughed. This step will take a while. Let us drink some tea and chat. Seeing that, Tang Tian immediately extended his hand and took it, effortlessly placing the crystal bottle on the metal rack. He then saw clearly, it was not any little silver fishes, but 10 soybean-sized silver blood drops. Belle glanced at Old Man Fei. Do you have tea leaves here? How do you guys appraise blood meridians? Tang Tian asked curiously. The research on blood meridians was equivalent to burning money, and he was currently short on funds. In the gigantic warehouse, there were rows of metal racks that stretched as far as the eye could see, and on the metal racks, there were all sorts of star spirit beast specimens. There were so many types, causing Tang Tian to be dazzled. There were also many transparent crystal containers with all sorts of blood drops floating in them. Other than the usual blood red ones, there were silver, blue, black, etc. Sure. Tang Tian was interested. Old Man Fei took out a needle, and from Tang Tian's arm he drew out half a tube of blood. The place is a little messy, I'm really sorry. Old Man Fei was slightly embarrassed. The entire workshop was filled with junk and there was not even a place to stand. He immediately cleared the junk on the floor to create a place for everyone to stand. Belle immediately understood Old Man Fei's thoughts, but she did not object. Old Man Fei's standard was rather outstanding. If not for his weird research, he would definitely be rolling in money. This is the result of my years of hard work. Old Man Fei's expression was filled with pride. Looking at the test tubes on the cabinet, he could not help but sigh. My way of thinking is different from others. All the blood meridian specialists, their ultimate goal, is to nurture a strong blood meridian. Amongst them, there are some who fuse different blood meridians, trying to create an even stronger blood meridian. While there are some who try to nurture an even purer blood meridian, they think the purer the blood meridian, the stronger the power. But my way of thinking belongs to the latter and is different from the majority of people. I feel that every blood meridian is like a huge mine. Its composition is very complicated. Currently, any blood meridian is no longer pure, but there will always be some ancient blood meridian fragments. And what I like to do is to continuously separate them, and in this process I can obtain many unique blood meridians. Old Man Fei froze on the spot, but he had lived for so many years and his face had long been trained, and without any awkwardness he laughed. Sorry. Why don't you take a look at this old man's collection? Tang Tian looked around curiously. So it was like that. To be able to accommodate 2 blood meridians, your body's endurance is not bad. Follow me. Upon hearing that Tang Tian was Bel's boss, Old Man Fei's tone immediately became courteous, and he was secretly happy. Belle often came to him to buy all sorts of new blood meridians to treat Pai Pa's illness, and he understood her extremely well. Although she was young, but she had a lot of experience and was ambitious to be willing to rely on a boss, he would definitely be rich and powerful. That's right. Every blood meridian contains different energy undulations, and these energy undulations are not messy but have their own rules. The strength of the undulations, the range of the undulations, the cycle of the undulations, etc., are all different for every blood meridian. Just like how there are no 2 leaves that are exactly the same in this world, there are no blood meridians that are exactly the same. Old Man Fei said confidently. Wave value method? That sounds reasonable. Tang Tian nodded his head. He did not beat around the bush and said straightforwardly, "Then let's begin." Old Man Fei was roused. The lupus race is the descendants of the ancient heavenly martial werewolf race, but in their blood meridians the heavenly martial werewolf race blood meridians are already very thin. The current lupus race's blood meridians are mainly the ancient lupus race blood meridians, and the ancient lupus race is also one of the races with the most branches, causing the current lupus race's blood meridians to be extremely chaotic. It is very difficult for them to awaken the power of their blood meridians, and they need to use the awakening blood spring to do so. I once seriously researched on the lupus constellation's blood meridians, and the heavenly martial werewolf race's blood meridians. I have refined very little. Old Man Fei, this is my boss. Belle introduced. This time I am not here for Pai Pa. Boss wants to clarify the blood meridians in his body. Too ugly. But it had to be said that Old Man Fei had some standards. The wave value method that he came up with was surprisingly effective. But Old Man Fei obviously did not have the talent to do business, although he had many results, but he sold very little. Thank you. The old man wiped his sweat and laughed. This is the silver mole rat blood meridians and is the most careful. Young man, you have great strength. What power blood meridians did you use? Good, the fee is 500,000 star coins. Old Man Fei said. The country bumpkin Tang Tian was like a country bumpkin entering the city, opening his mouth wide the moment he entered. But for safety reasons Belle made him wear a mask. And when Tang Tian took out the orangutan mask, she could not wait to buy a mask for Tang Tian. It should not be too high grade, Old Man Fei secretly thought. He placed the test tube containing the blood into the triangular silver plate. The 3 corners of the triangular silver plate suddenly seemed to come alive, extending out like a lotus leaf wrapping the test tube. No problem. At this time Tang Tian was rarely generous. He only had one thought in his mind. Could it be that his body really contained some blood meridians? The 2 of them followed behind Old Man Fei and came to a workshop filled with all sorts of instruments. As though they sensed Tang Tian's presence, they suddenly stopped and retreated backwards. Chapter 291. Tang Tian thought about the newcomers and cannon fodder that Bing had selected. All of them were from the lupus race. If their strength could be raised a little and the price was not too high, then he would consider. The black flames also dimmed and disappeared, and a ball of blood floated in the air. Thinking about it, Tang Tian still decided to buy it. Then let's buy it. Old Man Fei's eyes were filled with tears. I finally met a tyrant. He could not wait to pounce on him and shout at the top of his lungs, Tyrant, let's be friends. One person was 30,000 star coins, 1,000 people would be 30 million star coins, and if there was an awakening blood spring, it would only be 5 million star coins. The difference was 25 million star coins. His intuition was astonishing. Old Man Fei's entire residence was under his senses. But the black flames were burning. He did not sense it at all. As long as we can awaken the ancient lupus race blood meridians in their bodies, they will have this talent. Old Man Fei said, their awakening blood spring will roughly have this effect. I have researched on the awakening blood spring. It only stimulates the other mixed blood meridians of the lupus race blood meridians. For example, the ancient sand wolf blood meridians. This will allow their strength to increase. But, to me, this is an extremely inefficient and unreasonable method. No wonder lupus constellation has fallen to such a state. Tang Tian and Belle did not follow in the workshop. There was not even a place to stay. seeing the variety of blood meridians, and all of them had a long history, but the completion rate was too low. With a completion rate of less than 50%, it was practically impossible to buy it on the market. And with 50% as the starting point, every 5% increase would be a step up. Tang Tian and Belle were attracted to Old Man Fei's words. They had never heard of such things before. What can a triangle calculate? Old Man Fei's gaze did not shift. He was extremely fanatical. Your blood meridians are truly unique. With the black flames, what blood meridians have the black flames? And to be able to burn the triangle energy plate, to the point that not even ashes are left, the grade of the black flames, how high must it be? I want to research it properly. Draw blood, quickly draw blood. Roughly how much money do you need? Tang Tian was extremely cautious. Tang Tian was swept by Old Man Fei's gaze, causing his hair to stand. His eyes lit up as though he wanted to swallow him whole. Old Man Fei shook his head. That I do not know. There is no heavenly martial werewolf blood with such a high degree of completion in the market. How much can it strengthen a martial artist's physique? There were very few bloodline specialists who had researched the jackal blood meridians and targeted the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians. However, it is an ancient bloodline after all. An 80% completion rate is still very terrifying. Previously he did not care about the awakening blood spring. But now that he heard that the awakening blood spring could save him a shocking amount of star coins, he immediately valued it. Old Man Fei recovered from the shock, his eyes shooting out a fanatical look. Oh my God! There's actually such a strange bloodline in this world. Yes, the awakening blood spring is naturally compatible with the jackal race. In fact, the awakening blood spring had been slowly transforming the jackal bloodline generation after generation. This transformation was slow and lengthy. Every generation of lupus warriors who used the awakening blood spring would be quietly transformed. This was the power of nature. Usually it is undetectable, but over time it causes people to revere it. Old Man Fei explained. Tang Tian's reaction was extremely fast. His figure disappeared and Belle immediately followed. Tang Tian felt a little guilty. The old man was not thinking of dissecting him, right? Tang Tian, who was behind the mask, inhaled a breath of cold air. When Belle sprinted into the workshop and saw the scene in front of her, she was shocked. It was not only her. Tang Tian and Old Man Fei were all like statues. If it is only a small increase in the power of the jackal blood meridians, is there any other way? Tang Tian suddenly asked and then added, it has to be cheap enough. But Tang Tian finally understood how expensive the blood meridians were, and had a direct understanding of them. The 80% completion rate of the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians, just the price paid to Old Man Fei, was already 65 million. Suddenly Old Man Fei exclaimed out loud, oh my God. On Tang Tian's arm there was not a single trace of blood. Personally witnessing such a strange scene, Belle's mind went blank. She had treated Pai Pa and understood more about blood meridians than anyone else, but she had never seen such a strange scene before. This is another business. Belle guessed Old Man Fei's thoughts. Old Man Fei was usually good to her. Old Man Fei did not have much money and she did not have much either, but in the past few years, Old Man Fei had given her many strange blood meridians to treat Pai Pa. The old man was a good person and she did not want him to offend the boss, so she reminded him. How much completion rate do you need? Old Man Fei asked back. A thread of black flame enveloped the triangular energy plate, quietly burning. The silver triangular energy plate inside the black flame was melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Another business. Old Man Fei heaved a sigh of relief. He was now sure that Tang Tian was a tyrant, and tried his best to show off. The jackal race usually uses the awakening blood spring, but I have a better idea. Among the jackal race blood meridians, the largest proportion is the ancient jackal race blood meridians. Many people think that it is a completely useless blood meridians because the ancient jackal race's fighting strength was average and there was nothing special about them. But the ancient jackal race tenaciously continued to live, and became the jackal race, and that was not without reason. The jackal race's reproduction ability is strong, and that is one reason they are able to survive in such a harsh environment. And another reason is that they are good at teamwork. The jackal race is probably one of the races that are good at teamwork. They are vigilant and cunning, cold and emotionless. Old Man Fei could not help but sigh, but very quickly he realized that he had gone off topic and immediately said, Those mixed blood meridians are too thin to activate them. The starting point is lower than other races. The ancient jackal race blood meridians are easy to refine, and are relatively complete, and currently occupy about 70% of the jackal race blood meridians. Activating them should be able to complete your request. I can provide a medicine and it only costs 30,000 star coins per person. If you have the awakening blood spring, it will only cost 5,000 star coins per person. Just at that moment he suddenly sensed something and raised his head to look outside. What exactly was going on? Old Man Fei's small eyes flashed with light. He started to look forward to the 65 million star coins. That was 65 million star coins. Is it cheap enough? Old Man Fei looked at Tang Tian worriedly. 65 million star coins would not be wasted, right? It's a pity that I do not have enough jackal blood meridians. I have refined around 3,000 sets of jackal blood meridians, and only managed to refine this much. It looks good, but actually the completion rate is only 30%. Old Man Fei said regretfully. In theory, the more jackal blood meridians you refine, the closer you can get to the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians. But in reality, to be able to reach 50% or 60% is already not easy. The number of specimens required is too large. Tang Tian quietly asked Bell. A normal set of jackal blood meridians was roughly 500 star coins. 30,000 sets would be 15 million star coins. Just the cost alone would be over 80 million. To dare say the higher the completion rate, if he was not a tyrant, then what was he? Too expensive. Tang Tian thought about it. The jackal tribe had at least a few tens of thousands of people. 30,000 should be enough. Tyrant. 65 million star coins. If it was Ling Su, He Bing and the rest, he would not feel any heartache. But his original intention was to give it to Hua Heir. The jackal tribe would not have a single expert and would not be stable. Hua Heir's strength was not bad, but compared to Wu Taiyu and the rest, she was still lacking. A warm flow of energy entered Tang Tian's body, but Tang Tian did not feel any discomfort. 300 to 500 million, that was still a fair price. If it was slightly more black-hearted and sold for 1 billion, you would not be able to do anything about it. Tang Tian's heart was indescribably shocked. The black flames, he felt a familiar feeling. But he did not sense it at all. To him it was hard to believe. It was not that he could not refine it, but he did not have the money. Old Man Fei was overjoyed. 65 million star coins. This was definitely the biggest order he had ever received. All the blood meridians in the treasure room had extremely low completion rates. The lowest was only 0.5%. He did not know because there was a very important reason he was unable to take out a drop of blood meridians that had a completion rate of 70%. I need a few samples to test it out to see the effect. Tang Tian thought for a while. Let's start with 10 portions. It is not perfect, it is complete. And this is only in theory. Old Man Fei corrected Tang Tian's mistake. If we can have 30,000 portions, we should be able to reach 80% and above. Once we reach 60% and above, for every increase in percentage, we will need to put in more effort than before. For it to be complete, we will need at least 1 million portions. The ball of blood suddenly flew towards Tang Tian, and Tang Tian could not dodge in time. The ball of blood struck his arm, transforming into a pool of blood that wrapped around Tang Tian's arm. In a blink of an eye, the blood was like water pouring into sand, quickly seeping into Tang Tian's arm. 25 million star coins was enough to start a war. The triangular plate melted into a pool of silver liquid, becoming smaller and smaller in the black flames, gradually evaporating like a water droplet, disappearing. Thinking about it, a drop of heavenly martial werewolf blood, if placed in a shop, how many star coins would it sell for? No problem, I only need half an hour. Old Man Fei straightforwardly turned and walked into the workshop. But Tang Tian was surprised. The awakening blood spring is so powerful? Tang Tian understood and said, that's right, this is another business and it needs to be cheap enough. That also means, if I can provide enough lupus blood meridians, I can refine even more perfect heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians? Tang Tian's heart moved and asked. After a while he suppressed the excitement in his heart and gave a price. If you can provide samples, 50% completion rate will be 5 million star coins. 60% 10 million star coins. 70% 30 million star coins. If you want to achieve 80% completion rate, you need 65 million star coins. Hua Heir was a good person, and if she wanted to lead the lupus tribe in the future, she needed to have valiant power. Without power, she would not be able to convince the masses. Your triangular plate is gone. Tang Tian wanted to change the topic. 80% completion rate Heavenly Martial Werewolf Blood Meridians, how powerful is that? Tang Tian's tone was filled with pain. Even for the triangular plate he had to muster up all his courage and throw in all his savings to barely buy it. Naturally, the higher the better. Tang Tian said as a matter of fact. Chapter 292. Ancient Grey Swan Blood Meridian Specimen? Old Man Fei exclaimed, his eyes lit up. You have the ancient Grey Swan Blood Meridian Specimen? Impossible. The Grey Swan race had already disappeared for 10,000 years. How can we have their blood meridian specimen? Mr. Fei, I wonder if you are able to refine out the Grey Swan blood meridians? The lady said calmly. Belle's pupils suddenly constricted. Although the sturdy man was knocked down, the other two were calm without any signs of panic. Unless the ground was in a mess, it was full of holes from Tang Tian's attacks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sturdy man beside her snorted. He suddenly took a step forward, opened his palm leaf fan-like big hands and grabbed towards Tang Tian. You've never seen it before, right? The sturdy man suddenly laughed. Big man, you have quite the strength. Old Man Fei's mind was filled with the scene of the black flames swallowing the energy plate. Although his energy plate was not a powerful star treasure, but it was still a northern sky-grade silver star treasure, and to destroy it required a huge amount of strength. But in the black flames it was actually burnt to ashes. No, not even ashes were left. Although the Grey Swan blood meridians were also ancient blood meridians, but Cygnus constellation was only a northern sky-grade constellation, but the black flame blood meridians just now was definitely of a higher grade than the Grey Swan blood meridians. Although he did not know what blood meridians it was. Boss, can you not be like this? Grey Swan blood meridian specimens were extremely rare. If not for a coincidence, she would not have been able to obtain one. As long as she could complete this order, Old Man Fei's name would definitely rise. Furthermore, there would be 30 million star coins. Belle face-bombed. It was truly embarrassing. Upon entering, he squinted his eyes, his gaze sweeping across Tang Tian and Belle. Belle's gaze swept across the three of them at the same time, and when their gazes met, a strange look flashed past their eyes. The orangutan mask was covered in dirt, but it seemed to have an unspeakable ruthlessness and savagery. Then I'll let you see it. The sturdy man raised his face that was buried in the floor, his face filled with a sinister smile. He was actually not injured at all. The lady laughed indifferently. We have 5 sets of Grey Swan blood meridians. I believe it is enough for Mr. Fei to refine a Grey Swan blood meridian that is more than 70% complete. Of course, in terms of price, we will not let Mr. Fei suffer a loss. We are willing to pay a remuneration of 30 million star coins. Hey kid, is that all you've got? Tang Tian acted as though it was nothing and swung again. Silence, an oppressive silence. A look of admiration appeared in the woman's eyes. She nodded and said, Mr. Fei is indeed knowledgeable. How many samples of the ancient Grey Swan bloodline would I need to extract a Grey Swan bloodline with a completion rate of more than 70%? Tang Tian was a little surprised this time. This guy's bones were quite hard. Even after being smashed like this, he still seemed to be fine. Never seen it before. Tang Tian shook his head like a rattle drum. Apart from having more meat, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Swing again. Old Man Fei was extremely excited. His mind was filled with thoughts of the mysterious blood meridians that could produce black flames. Grey Swan bloodline? Old Man Fei was taken aback. He shook his head and said, the Grey Swan bloodline was already extinct 10,000 years ago. Even at that time they were just a small branch with impure blood meridians. The reason why they were extinct was because of their impure blood meridians. During the civil war of Cygnus constellation, the Grey Swan bloodline was attacked by both the Black and White Swan bloodlines. Their bloodline meridians were not left behind. Also, why the Grey Swan bloodline? A swan bloodline with a completion rate of more than 70%, regardless if it's the White Swan bloodline or the Black Swan bloodline, it's not bad. Bang. Belle was clear of her boss's temper. The moment Tang Tian made his move, she pulled Old Man Fei and retreated. The sturdy man stood up with a relaxed face. He patted the dust off his palms and sneered, to compete with me in strength, you must be tired of living. He did not even look at Tang Tian, who was almost stuck in the ground. Instead he tilted his head and looked at Old Man Fei. Old man, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Under Belle's dumbstruck and Old Man Fei's fanatical gaze, Tang Tian swung the sturdy man. In one breath he smashed more than 10 times before stopping. A man's voice came out from outside the door. Old Man Fei was startled. He recovered from his fanatical state and shouted, "Come in." Bang. Back throw. The lady was approximately 1.7 tall. Dressed in a tight-fitting leather jacket, she wore a pair of sunglasses that covered half of her face, revealing only her lips and sharp chin. Her gaze retracted from Tang Tian's body. Her face was as per normal. So strong. 30 million star coins did not sound as much as Tang Tian's 65 million star coins. But the difference in workload between the two was like heaven and earth. Extracting 5 sets of gray swan blood meridians and extracting 30,000 sets of jackal blood meridians. Which was easier? Without waiting for her to remind Tang Tian, another palm grabbed onto Tang Tian's hand. But out of her expectations, Old Man Fei remained silent. A loud sound came out. The ground shook. The sturdy man was smashed into the ground by Tang Tian. Half of his body was already embedded in the ground. Countless of cracks spread out. Tang Tian's figure, unknowingly, appeared behind the sturdy man. The sturdy man suddenly raised his head from the ground. His face was filled with a sinister smile and ridicule. He looked like a cat playing with a mouse. Seems like I'm in trouble. The three of them were startled. Tang Tian also lifted the sandbag. He actually lifted the sturdy man. A cold intent flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. Tang Tian was a person who never knew fear. Since the opponent took the initiative to make a move, Tang Tian was not polite. How terrifying was the black flame. Hey, I'm obviously the one with the advantage. The lady looked over. Coincidentally, Tang Tian looked over as well. Their gazes clashed in the air. But Tang Tian was surprised. The sturdy man was able to withstand the fall. If a normal martial artist were to suffer such a fall, they would be depressed for half a day. But looking at the sturdy man's sinister smile, Tang Tian was unhappy. So weird. The flying rocks shot out like rain. Belle immediately protected Old Man Fei. But the two people's actions caused Belle's heart to sink. The onyx soul horse was still fine. He casually flicked away the pebbles that flew over. But the lady did not even move her finger. The pebbles that flew over seemed to have met with an invisible barrier and were unable to move an inch. So weird. She was surprised. But she was not anxious. She waited patiently. Old Man Fei did not have any reason to reject. Tang Tian dragged the sturdy man in front of him. He curiously touched him all over. But there really isn't a single scar left. The conditions he offered, no matter how he looked at it, was an irresistible temptation to Old Man Fei. Tang Tian's palm grabbed onto the opponent's wrist. Without thinking, he twisted his waist and turned around. With his back facing the sturdy man, the power in his hand suddenly exploded. After thinking it through, Old Man Fei raised his head. I'm sorry, the Gray Swan Blood Meridian specimen is too high level. My standard is limited. Please find someone else. Old Man Fei struggled in his heart. He knew the preciousness of the Gray Swan Blood Meridian specimen. And there were 5 of them. With his standard, if he was lucky, he might even be able to achieve an 80% completion rate. He was extremely knowledgeable. The Gray Swan Blood Meridians were extremely pure. They were even purer than the Black Swan and White Swan. That was the reason for the Battle of Cygnus Constellation. Tang Tian's eyes suddenly flashed with a serious look. His arm was like a soft cloth. He gently shook it. A wave of true power entered the sturdy man's body. The sinister smile on the sturdy man's face froze. Boss is a beast. A voice came out from the ground. The sturdy man's expression congealed. The lady who was expressionless all along had a change in expression for the first time. She exclaimed, "Be careful." Bang. What was going on today? Usually there would not even be a shadow of a person. Why were there so many people coming today? His residence in Yong'an City was extremely secluded. Because he could not rent a shop on the street and could not take out a high completion rate blood meridians, very few people knew of his existence. The sturdy man squinted his eyes. Grabbing onto Tang Tian's hands, he exerted strength. Lowering his waist, he bent his body into a bow shape and fell backwards. Suddenly, the lady said indifferently, Don't tell me someone is forcing you? The lady was extremely confident in the price. Her companions had investigated Old Man Fei for a long time. She was extremely clear of Old Man Fei's situation. Although Old Man Fei was not poor and dejected, but he was rather poor. His standard was outstanding. But he was always limited by funds. He was unable to produce any results. So his name was not known. Bang. That was the only possibility she could think of. And all the mysteries were on the man wearing the mask. What blood meridians did he have? Belle was secretly speechless. The sturdy man's body was as tall and sturdy as a small mountain. But in a moment he was taken down by the boss. Old Man Fei's eyes lit up. The dwarf blood and angel blood definitely could not allow Tang Tian to have such power. It must definitely be the weird blood meridians in Tang Tian's body. As for Belle, who was on guard, he completely ignored her. That was a temptation that Old Man Fei could not resist. Old Man Fei was a blood meridian specialist. His understanding of blood meridians was much deeper than normal people. But he had never seen such a black flame before. He had never even heard of it. This blood meridians should be able to greatly increase the strength of the physical body. But it would not cause the muscles to expand. 3 people walked in. The other party did not expect there to be other people. The man who just spoke had an ordinary appearance. There was nothing special about him. If he was thrown into a crowd, he would immediately disappear. The sturdy man did not expect that Tang Tian's weak-looking body would actually have such strength. Being caught off guard, he immediately lost his balance. It was not fanciful at all. But his strength was sufficient. Bang bang bang. They never thought that Old Man Fei would actually reject it. A poor and destitute blood meridian specialist would actually reject a business worth 30 million and reject a chance to become famous? May I ask if Mr. Fei is around? Compared to her, the sturdy man beside her was much more eye-catching. He was more than 2.5 m tall. His body was like an iron tower. His entire body was bulging with muscles. He was bald and had a fierce look in his eyes. It was filled with pressure. Belle lowered her voice and whispered into Tang Tian's ears. That fellow is an onyx soul horse. His level is not low. He should be a silver ranked. The other party was doing the same thing. But the person he was reporting to was the lady in the middle. The mouth behind the mask was as cold as a blade. Chapter 293. The two of them revealed a look of relief. That was Big Sister's style. Hey, don't tell me you're really afraid? Only the lady saw a blur. In the eyes of the others, Tang Tian's palm disappeared in the air. Tang Tian's loud voice came out from afar. Everyone who passed by looked over in astonishment. He was being teased. Blood Speaker AI Zeke, hailed as the strongest Blood Meridian's Grandmaster in the past 1,000 years, was ranked 4th. With such a master, no matter where he was, he would definitely be dazzling. Blood Speaker AI Zeke? The sturdy man was shocked. Don't tell me he's Blood Speaker AI Zeke's student? He looked at the lady's back and shouted, Hey 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 woman, let's just fight, okay? Don't be afraid, I'll let you win. One hand. Why, you're not even willing to do that. Deep breath, don't bother with him. Wait for the mission to be completed. The lady's anger had already calmed down and she regained her composure. We need to leave for Lupus Constellation tonight. This mission is extremely important, we cannot fail. Did you forget about the disaster 200 years ago? AI Zeke died so tragically that his students were implicated, and a few of them did not even know about it. Those that were lucky enough to survive would definitely not dare to show their faces. The Onyx Soul Horseman sighed but immediately laughed. Old Man Fei's standard is still very powerful. The Grey Swan blood meridians should not be a problem for him. After relaxing, the sturdy man could not help but ask, is that old man really that powerful? Even if Old Man Fei missed him, he could still find other blood meridians experts. The Onyx Soul Horseman jumped up and exclaimed, Clan Union and Honorable Martial Alliance? What a huge commotion this time. Hey woman, are you afraid? The orangutan young man in front of him was not moved, and a low and stern voice came out from behind the mask. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Yes. The lady said indifferently, this is a tough battle, we need to be in our best condition to face this battle. It's not worth wasting energy on this guy. After walking out of Old Man Fei's street, the Onyx Soul Horseman could not help but ask, Big sister, why didn't you? Although the Onyx Soul Horseman did not agree with it, to him, Lupus Constellation did not have any experts, but he did not dare to go against Big Sister and said, "So that's how it is." The woman nodded. "Good. Once the mission is over, I'll deal with this matter." Old Man Fei knew that Belle was experienced and knowledgeable, his eyes were sharp and immediately became worried. "Then what do we do?" The two men beside her quietly pulled away from the Big Sister. They looked at each other with a strange expression on their faces. When the two of them heard Tang Tian's words, they immediately felt that it was absurd. The first thought that appeared in their minds was that this guy was dead for sure. As expected, Big Sister was clearly furious. Killing intent emanated from her body, causing the two of them to tremble in fear. They hurriedly distanced themselves from her lest they were met with misfortune. Especially the burly man, he had long forgotten about his own internal injuries and carefully followed behind. The lady hesitated. She suddenly felt that if she were to leave like this, she might not be able to see Old Man Fei again. But when she thought about the mission, she threw all these distracting thoughts to the back of her head. "Why don't you go to our place?" Belle glanced at Tang Tian and threw out a suggestion. The burly man immediately shook his head. "Don't worry, I'll be fine by tomorrow." Scope. She threw out that sentence and flew forward. The burly man's face was filled with disbelief. Even a grand disciple shouldn't be so unknown. Big Sister even said, "If we don't win or die, if I drag them down, I'm afraid I'll be the first to be killed. But if I fail this mission, then I won't have the chance to make a comeback." Tang Tian's heart was filled with anticipation. His body subconsciously leaned forward like a cheetah ready to pounce. His entire body had already adjusted to the most coordinated state. The Onyx Soul Horseman was unsatisfied. "Don't tell me you doubt my standard?" With Sai Lei's experience, Tang Tian had long known how to seduce people like Old Man Fei. "I'll build you the most advanced workshop. At least 100 million star coins. Just like a gust of wind." Although it was surprising, but it made Tang Tian's fighting intent even higher. The lady clenched her teeth and secretly swore in her heart. The Onyx Soul Horseman shook his head. When the two of them were disappointed, he said, "It's a grand disciple. Old Man Fei's teacher is AI Zeke's youngest student." Even when the lady heard that name, she stopped in her tracks. "Only by fighting with a true expert can I truly improve." A cold voice sounded out. The lady's figure flashed. She blocked in front of Tang Tian, killing intent coiling around her body. The terrifying aura enveloped the entire area. Seeing that the lady was about to leave, Tang Tian panicked and shouted towards the lady's back view. "Hey woman, are we not fighting anymore?" The sound of defeat rang out. The burly man's body trembled as though he was drunk and was pushed by someone. He took a few steps forward before stabilizing himself, and his face was unnaturally flushed red. His bell-like eyes revealed a tinge of fear. The spiraling qi drilled into his body, and even with layers of true power defense, he was unable to block it. The lady was seething with anger, her hands tightly holding onto the sword hilt. Because she was using too much strength, her knuckles had turned white. The fighting intent in Tang Tian's body was boiling, his eyes firmly locked onto the lady. She turned her head and asked the burly man, "Your injuries? Why aren't we fighting?" Tang Tian stood up with a blank face. He scratched his head. He was completely unclear of the situation. Just now, everyone was still in a state of mutual hostility. Who knew that the lady would suddenly stop fighting? Then what made the two of them feel inconceivable was that Big Sister actually did not turn around to fight back. Old Man Fei's residence. "Asshole, I will definitely kill you personally." Tang Tian completely did not know what the lady was thinking. The aura that she released was extremely unique. Tang Tian's heart was filled with anticipation as he prepared to experience it. He did not expect that the lady would stop fighting just like that. Tang Tian's curiosity was immediately aroused, causing him to feel unspeakably uncomfortable. He was a young man who was destined to become the strongest martial artist. With that, the lady walked straight out of the door. What true power was that? The burly man nodded his head. "Blood Speaker's grand disciple, that is natural." The lady did not expect that. Not only was Tang Tian not afraid, but his fighting intent was even higher. The Tang Tian in front of her was like a regiment of blazing flames. She felt threatened, her body slightly leaned forward, her right hand unknowingly was already holding onto the sword hilt at her waist. The face under the sunglasses was not clear, her entire person releasing a biting cold aura. Old Man Fei's heart palpitated to him. Yong'an City was not a place that he was too attached to. His current state of mind was completely focused on Tang Tian's blood meridians, and he was very familiar with Belle. He knew she would not cheat him. Old Man Fei hesitated for a while. Then your blood meridians must definitely be given to me for research. Tang Tian was not afraid. Instead, he was even more eager to be able to exchange blows with an expert. To him, it was originally filled with temptation. He knew his own strength. Compared to a true expert, he was still far from it. He was not afraid of others being stronger than him, nor was he afraid of being beaten like a dog. Hey, this young man never lacked the courage to chase after others. Suddenly, the lady straightened her body. The biting cold aura just now disappeared without a trace. She did not even look at Tang Tian. Her snow-white fingers pushed her sunglasses and said indifferently, Mr. Fei did not mean it. It is such a pity, but I believe that we will have the opportunity to work together in the future. Sorry for the disturbance. This mission is so important. The Onyx Soul Horseman was taken aback. Hearing that, Tang Tian reacted, nodding his head. That's right, that's right. Come to our place. Your safety is guaranteed. If you can't win, then die. Her heart surged with a strong impulse. Immediately turn around, cut this asshole into pieces and feed him to the dogs. The lady's calm words caused their hearts to tremble. Your Excellency's methods are ruthless. He did not care about anything else and hurriedly mobilized the true power in his body to block the extremely sharp true power. Tang Tian was actually surprised. His hand blade just now actually only caused the opponent to suffer light injuries. The big guy's body was much stronger than what he had imagined. His silver spirit spiraling energy was like a high-speed revolving drill. Its destructive power was extremely terrifying. Let me use one hand. No problem. Tang Tian agreed without hesitation. I also want to know what blood meridians it has. The lady's expression behind the sunglasses became extremely ugly. She clenched her fists tightly, her entire body releasing a cold chi. The two beside her knew that Big Sister was furious and kept quiet out of fear. Tang Tian, who was behind the mask, excitedly licked his lips. But what made Tang Tian truly excited was the unique chi that the opponent was releasing. It was like the chi of a sword but also like the chi of a spear. It was the first time Tang Tian had encountered such a unique chi. He was extremely familiar with the two types of chi. Crane trained in the sword, Ling Su trained in the spear. But Tang Tian never thought that the chi of the sword and the spear could actually be mixed together. This was an unexpected harvest. To be able to kidnap a blood meridian specialist, such a good thing. Where else could he find it? He had to thank those three fellows. They were really good people. Old Man Fei's face was covered in tears. Tyrant, we are finally friends. Seeing that, the other two immediately followed. Belle, who was at the side, heaved a sigh of relief, rolled her eyes, using her hands to cover her face. She had decided in her heart in the future she would never go out with her boss. The lady's footsteps became messy. She did not expect to meet such a high-grade existence like Tang Tian. The Onyx Soul Horseman snorted. Although this Old Man Fei is not famous, but he has a big background, just that not many people know about it. I spent a lot of effort to find out. 200 years ago there was a Blood Meridian's Grandmaster Ai Zeku. Have you heard of him? Very strong. No. The sturdy man waved his hands. Interesting. The lady naturally heard his uneasiness and said indifferently, our enemies this time are the Clan Union and the Honorable Martial Alliance. He was actually being taken advantage of. Old Man Fei immediately said, the money has to be calculated separately too. This. They will not let this go. Belle reminded, these people's background is not simple. The lady in front of him was stronger than the big man. In the next moment her hand chopped the back of the sturdy man. The silver spirit spiraling energy gushed out along the palm. No one had ever dared to speak to her like that, never. Chapter 294. In the past there had never been such a situation. Ling Su wanted to remove the sheep-horn wind bells a few times, but he did not do so. It was definitely the sheep-horn wind bells' doing. Time was like water. The Big Dipper changed, and in the end things and people changed. As strong as Master, he could not withstand the erosion of time, and the heavenly crane had fallen to such a state. Time had its ups and downs, everything had its ups and downs. Nothing was eternal, only time, only the starry sky. Heavenly Crane Sword Principle. Crane did not know what Yun Duo was thinking, but for some reason he thought of Tang Tian. Who knows where that rascal ran off to? He shook his head and laughed. Yun Duo was stunned. Time is eternal, life is small but not inferior. He suddenly turned and smiled. Xiao Duo, you definitely know where Wu Taiyu is. Until today's breakthrough did the pressure disappear. All sorts of sprints. Thank you, Aunt, for your concern. Please send my regards to Aunt. In the past, Crane had a lot of opinions about his powerful aunt. Regarding the matter between his mother and father in the past, his aunt had tried to obstruct them. If not for him staring at the sky, no one would have noticed Heavenly Crane constellation. When Crane opened his eyes again, the sky was close to dawn. His head of silver hair had actually once again become jet black. His silver hair was caused when he was young and did not cultivate properly, which resulted in it. Now that the obstruction was gone, his silver hair became jet black again. Thinking about his teacher, Ling Su dispelled that thought. 2 days ago when he saw Tang Yi leading his team and brandishing his blade, Ling Su was stunned. The spear was a natural weapon for the battlefield, even his pointed sea spears had many of such techniques. But at this time Heavenly Crane constellation was completely boiling. She had seen Master Crane many times, and in the past he was suave and gentle, but there was always a gloomy air between his brows, and now his brows were relaxed, his expression calm, and his eyes as deep as the stars. The distant horizon of the desert was dyed with a layer of gold and the sky was bright. Teacher also has his sheephorn wind bells. I wonder if it is this Heavenly Crane Sword Principle, the true top-grade inheritance of the Crane sect, and only the sect leaders could train in it. But this sword manual principle was the earliest to be lost, and was the true reason for Heavenly Crane Constellation's decline. Finally, he didn't drag them down too much. Because only the Heavenly Crane Sword Principle could activate the saint treasure of the Heavenly Crane Constellation, the Crane Sword. The Crane Sword in his hand hummed lightly as though it could feel the fighting intent in Crane's heart. It was excited and trembling. But after an hour he actually didn't make any progress. The silver frost mount spear techniques and his own pointed sea spears were extremely similar, with only a slight difference. However, this slight difference made Ling Su feel unusually awkward. He retracted his gaze and started to cultivate again. He couldn't be bothered with them. Today's cultivation mission wasn't completed yet. He activated Flamingo, intending to pick a place further away to practice his spear arts. Cloud was surprised by Crane's amicable expression. In her impression, young Master was extremely stubborn, especially towards Master. He was always cold and resistant. And the Master's personality was even more overbearing. If not for his own sister, he would have captured Crane long ago. The young lady looked at the refined young Master in front of her, her face blushing slightly. She bowed and said, Master ordered this servant to come, is to remind young Master, this time it is a battle of strength. The situation is complicated, young Master needs to be careful. Shaking his head and laughing at himself, Crane's heart suddenly surged with a heroic spirit. Crane's mind was shaken. Elder Crane's face was covered with tears. Little Duo, long time no see. Crane was not surprised by the young lady's appearance and smiled. That blade caused Ling Su's blood to boil, his fighting intent ignited. The myriad of changes of the sword starts from one. This is the principle. In the dark of the night, on a tall sand dune about 5 li away from the tribe. Suddenly, Ling Su noticed the sheephorn wind bells trembling slightly, as though there was an invisible force attracting it, causing it to tilt slightly. Yun Duo was startled, her expression changing. Crane, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes. The night sky of the desert was filled with stars, vast and tranquil. An indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. The Crane body in his body expanded and relaxed, containing a unique rhythm. The enemy hiding in the shadows heard the bird's steps, and thought that Ling Su was just going to rush forward again. But when he realized that the hooves did not stop, but instead increased in speed, his face changed. Until today that thought could no longer be suppressed. The Heavenly Crane Sword Principle was lost, causing the Crane Sword to be shelved. And no one knew that the saint treasure of the Heavenly Crane Constellation was not only a gold-ranked treasure, but a sword. Only he knew the Crane Sword was unsealed. Countless thoughts surged forth like a tide. Crane then understood the Heavenly Crane Sword Principle was not lost, It had always been in slumber inside the gold saint's sword. A wave of cold and tranquil energy continuously flowed into Crane's body from the sword. Crane's ears seemed to ring out a clear cry of a crane, piercing through the clouds like a sword cutting through the air. Maybe I should try out the spear techniques that appeared in my dreams? The grievances of the past were long gone. Every time this happened, a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling would always float up from the bottom of Ling Su's heart. Ling Su warned himself with all his might it was just a dream, but the feeling was so clear, so real. But at the moment his state of mind was extremely calm. The increase in his strength caused his vision and heart to be even broader than before. And after meeting Tang Tian and the rest, he finally understood what it meant by there would always be someone stronger than you. Ling Su, that lunatic strength was not inferior to his, and his improvement speed was astonishing. And Tang Tian, that freak, his improvement was even more unimaginable, causing people to be flabbergasted. It was as though he had walked out of a painting. After practicing the pointed sea spears for over 10 years, it was already ingrained into his bones. To want to change it was extremely difficult. Ling Su's eyes squinted. There's someone. The crane soared on Crane's knees, sensed his chi and lit up with a faint gold light aura. It was the countless of dazzling lives that formed the magnificent river of man on heaven and earth. Some of the techniques he was very familiar with. He did not see the crane soared on his knees, suddenly blossomed with a gold light. A gold light crane struggled out of the gold light and entered the sky, and the heavenly crane constellation suddenly lit up and immediately returned to normal. This caused the prideful crane to feel an immense pressure. The relationship between both parties had always been stiff. A human's life under the starry sky was as insignificant as a speck of dust. But the dazzling life was bestowed with another kind of eternity. Ling Su tried for an hour but was still unable to do it and could not help but shake his head. His training schedule was packed and he did not have time to waste. There were many times when Ling Su was distracted while training, he would subconsciously imitate the silver frost mounts in his dreams. Everyone who was born would begin to walk towards death. 10 years of life compared to the living things in heaven and earth was considered short. The shroud of death, the shortness of life, the ruthlessness of time, could cause the life energy to blossom so dazzling. That fellow broke through. Cloud's mind floated this sentence, and when she reacted, her face flushed red. Ling Su glanced at the sand dune, and coincidentally saw the light aura that shot into the sky. There were times when she knew that the spear needed to be deflected, but the spear tip would forcefully return to its original trajectory. She had personally witnessed the scene and her heart was extremely shocked. Seems like it was really just a dream. The silver figure in the dream seemed to be training continuously. Since the start, Tang Tian had always given him an immense pressure. That fellow's jaw-dropping improvement speed made Crane feel the formless pressure for the first time. Among the disciples of the Crane sect, he was the first, pulling far ahead of the rest. After hesitating for a long time, Ling Su finally decided to give it a try, but he did not want to be discovered, so he urged Flamingo and walked for a few li before stopping. He chose a direction opposite of Crane, which was a few li away from the stronghold. With Tang Yi guarding the stronghold, he was relatively assured if anything happened, the few li of distance to him could be covered in a blink of an eye. The crane body in his body was growing and multiplying, countless comprehensions. When the conditions were right, success would follow. Heavenly crane constellation was flourishing. The child of the past had already grown up. Since he had decided to imitate the silver frost mounts in the dream, he abandoned all other distracting thoughts and focused on recalling the techniques of the silver frost mounts in the dream. What is eternal? For the entire night, Crane was digesting the heavenly crane sword principle. The various martial techniques and mental cultivation techniques of the Crane sect were all extremely familiar to him, and he had never slacked off, bitterly training and thinking, accumulating and accumulating. Comparing it to the sword principle, the countless obstacles were suddenly solved. The silver figures in the dream would often display similar spear techniques. But even if the silver frost mounts were alone, when they brandished their silver spears, their imposing manner surpassed Tang Yi. The wild and cold-killing chi naturally flowed out. Crane smiled. He stood up, the wind blowing his black hair like a waterfall. His face was as flawless as jade, the black robes on his body fluttering as though he was riding the wind. He did not look like he was in the mortal world. Crane's heart was like the sea of stars in the sky, tranquil without any ripples. There was no excitement from breaking through. The starry sky in front of him shook his soul. The sky was boundless, the stars were like the sea. Then billions of years ago was the sky like that? In front of the starry sky, humans were so small, the so-called grand ambitions were just like passing clouds. Crane's heart was filled with emotions. The true power in his body, his chi was stirred, circulating unceasingly. What was the heavenly crane? It did not seek material desires, was not tainted by dust, was not clouded by the state of mind. Inside it was clear and peaceful. Outside, it roared and struck the clouds. There were two types of saint swords. One was the saint treasure sword, the other was the saint bestowal sword. Not good. I was discovered. Congratulations, young master. A young lady wearing a veil appeared, bowed to Crane and said respectfully, all the treasures of the heavenly crane constellation, regardless if they were bronze or silver ranked, all lit up with a faint light aura. Such a scene had never happened before in the heavenly crane constellation. Yun Duo revealed a look of joy and immediately said, if Master knew of young Master's achievements, she would definitely be extremely happy. Bang! Ling Su slowly activated Flamingo. He looked at the faint light in the sky, feeling that morning was approaching, the sun was about to rise from the ground, and all the plants and living things were longing for the sun to descend. For some reason, for the past few days, the strange song and the silver figures kept appearing in his dream. Crane felt as though he was standing on top of the sea of clouds, a thin and unsophisticated figure with a sword on his back. The sand dune in front of him suddenly exploded. Crane did not care about being excited. He calmed himself down and carefully memorized every word. Chapter 295. He couldn't restrain himself and decided to explore the jackal tribe at night. However, he wasn't an impulsive person, so he made up his mind to leave as soon as he touched them. He was full of confidence in his qigong, and felt that even if he could not win, escaping should not be a problem. This polar freezer is from the South Pole constellation, Southern Sky rank, Silver rank. It was a must-have item for bloodline specialists. It was most suitable for preserving all kinds of bloodline specimens. Its lowest temperature could reach -100 degrees Celsius. Even if the bloodline specimen was placed in there for 10,000 years, it would definitely not spoil. Definitely a fair price, 2 million star coins. An opportunity. As he ran for 70 miles, his internal injuries worsened. He laughed bitterly in his heart. This time he had gone too far. The injuries on his body would most likely take at least 2 months to heal. This time he would have to suffer another punishment from his master. The shop owner introduced, this light catcher mirror is not bad, Silver rank. Although the microscopium is Southern Sky rank, it is quite practical. 2 million star coins. Ling Su knew that this was the best opportunity. Gathering his remaining strength, he let out a long howl. Huai Bai Hua had already rushed to Hua Yang's side. He checked Hua Yang's breathing and revealed a sad expression. He raised his head and said, Your Excellency is ruthless. The sound of the wind chimes was strange. Seeing this, the shop owner no longer hesitated. Please wait. The shop owner sucked in a breath of cold air. This attitude was simply that of a nouveau riche. He gritted his teeth and said, My shop does have a treasure, but the price is a bit high. Treasures that could be used on blood meridians were extremely rare, and gold-ranked treasures were things that Old Man Fei never dared to think about. When he gradually calmed down, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It was too expensive. 300 million star coins. It actually cost 300 million star coins. What entered everyone's vision was a golden triangular plate. The shape was similar to Old Man Fei's triangular energy plate. He suddenly felt an extremely dangerous qi. Without thinking, his body instinctively leaned forward. The silver spear in his hand released a cold aura, and suddenly exploded into a pointed sea spear. Under the shop owner's anxious gaze, Old Man Fei put down the teacup and coughed lightly. Old Zhang, you only have these goods? 2 practical items are enough. Using all of these doesn't suit a bloodline specialist of my level. Ling Su, who was on the fiery bird, remained unmoved. His mind was still immersed in that spear, and he had actually unintentionally executed a move that had appeared in his dreams. The drop of silver liquid that had been produced in his body was surprisingly compatible with this spear. The silver aura was so cold that it froze Hua Yang's meridians. He stood rooted to the ground like an ice sculpture. A strange silver aura rose from the depths of his body and quickly spread throughout his body. The green-robed young man who was running for his life was Huai Baihua's disciple Hua Yang. Huai Baihua had the support of Onyx Soul, and thus had the qualifications to compete. Hua Yang's confidence was boosted. Although he knew that Tang Tian and the other two were very strong, when he remembered that Tang Tian and the other two were about the same age as him, he felt that even if they were stronger than him, it wouldn't be by much. Then their fragile hearts were completely destroyed by Tang Tian's next words, which were even more brutal and cruel. Even if he threw in all the star coins he had, Tang Tian would not even frown. The gold treasure tool was beyond his imagination, but its price was also beyond his imagination. His voice traveled far. Gold energy plate. From Triangulum Constellation Treasure Tool Gold Rank, extremely rare 300 million star coins. Old Man Fei, who was extremely happy, nodded his head, with the demeanor of a Blood Meridian's Grandmaster. It can shorten the refining time by quite a bit. Old Man Fei's breathing suddenly became rough, his gaze not willing to move away from the gold energy plate. Gold treasure tool, a rare gold treasure tool. Take a look. Tang Tian was straightforward. Ling Su then awoke from his daze. Looking at the person in front of him, he squinted his eyes and said, "Heaven Hook Huai Bai Hua?" The shop owner was trembling with excitement. Using all his skills, he started to recommend it to Old Man Fei. If he were to miss such an opportunity, his conscience would definitely be punished. Old Man Fei extended his hand towards the teacup. The shop owner looked at it and without saying a word, his private collection of tea leaves, which he was usually unwilling to drink, was now offered up. In the past, when Old Man Fei came to drink tea, Pei giving him a cup of water depended on his mood. After settling Old Man Fei, Tang Tian still had one more thing to do, and that was to buy a few suitable star treasures. A light sound rang out beside his ear. The true power that had drilled into his meridians exploded like glass, specks of silver aura like stars, sprinkling into his meridians. The shop owner was overjoyed, but his heart was filled with disdain. This old man with rosacea was acting like a dog. Humph, just a few days ago he came to the shop and still wanted to buy on credit. This was truly a change of fortune. No one could stop it. This thigh that he was relying on seemed to be unfathomably thick. Lowering his body, the flamingo he was riding suddenly lowered, and with a loud rumble he charged forward. Just at this time a long whistle sounded out from afar, and a figure flew over at an astonishing speed. "I'll buy it." Tang Tian was the same as before, waving his hand, brimming with the air of a nouveau riche entering the city. The Blood Meridian's mystery most likely involved his past, and involved the bastard man who abandoned his wife and son. The leader of the three, Tang Tian, how strong was he? The opponent had arrived at the camp and was about to escape. His tense state of mind had relaxed. This was the best opportunity. Buy. Tang Tian waved his hand, showing his wealth. Boss Zhang almost spat his saliva on Old Man Fei's face. "Before today, Old Man Fei, what level did you have?" After a while he took out a bronze box that looked like it had been around for a long time. He carefully placed the bronze box on the table and opened it even more carefully. Spending less money meant that the time needed to decipher it had to be delayed, and Tang Tian was naturally unhappy. Hua Yang, who was overjoyed, then realized that Ling Su was sprinting and his face changed. Old Man Fei looked at Tang Tian with a face of longing. But he still had some money, but other than the bleeding cat blade scythe, he did not have any other suitable star treasures. The star treasures that the Honorable Martial Alliance sold were expensive, and were not suitable for him to use. He came to Yong'an City to see if he could buy one or two treasures that he liked. The spear aura clashed with the fan aura and his face changed. He spat out a mouthful of blood as though he had suffered a heavy blow, and his speed of retreating increased exponentially. Such generosity, such boldness, my God, let's have a few of them every day. Ling Su did not make a sound, but the speed of flamingo under him increased again without a sound. The opponent was extremely vigilant. He thought that the spear was in the bag, but he did not expect that it would be blocked by the opponent. He did not expect that among the three Ling Su would be so powerful. That spear, if not for his quick reaction and without hesitation, he would have lost his life. That's true. Tang Tian agreed. He pointed to the star treasures on the table and said impolitely, "You only have these?" In the midst of the yellow sand, a silver light aura quietly appeared. He did not expect that the opponent's strength was far beyond his imagination. In one move he was already injured. Bye. Tang Tian waved his hand. The spear aura behind him broke through the air, but it was different from before. It had a melodious wind chime sound. This chase lasted for 70 li. You are a blood meridian specialist. This thought surfaced in his mind, and a cold and wild true power pierced into his body from his back. His attention was unprecedentedly focused, quietly closing in on Flamingo and brazenly sprinted forward. The shop owner saw Tang Tian's posture. Oh my, the big boss is here. Old man Fei had turned the tables. His face was full of smiles. Old Fei, look at this. Triangular deflection plate. It is most suitable for extracting and separating blood meridians from Triangulum Austral constellation Southern Sky grade silver rank. Only 5 million star coins. To unravel the mystery of blood meridians, star coins were nothing. The voice beside his ear made him feel as though he was struck by lightning. The green-robed young man in front of him had a pale face. Ling Su's spear just now had caused him to suffer heavy injuries. Adding on the fact that he had been sprinting with true power, his injuries became even more serious. Ling Su had wandered for a long time, and his experience was not something that Tang Tian could compare with. Upon hearing it, he knew that the opponent was calling for help. Tang Tian's ferocious hoodlum was completely exposed. But at that moment his eyes revealed a look of relaxation. He had finally escaped with his life. Old man Fei's triangular energy plate was destroyed. He also needed a suitable treasure, so he followed Tang Tian's bell. The three of them were dumbstruck. 10 million star coins without even blinking was spent just like that. Until now, Ling Su then clearly saw the person who was hiding in the shadows. He was actually a young man about the same age as him. The crescent moon sank into the sea of stars. The opponent's light body technique was outstanding. Although Flamingo sprinted forward, it was unable to close the distance between them. But Ling Su was not anxious at all. No matter how powerful the opponent's light body technique was, his true power was not limitless. And Flamingo was most proficient in long-distance raids. As long as he had enough star rocks, he could sprint all the way. As long as he followed the opponent, when the opponent's true power was exhausted, that would be the time for Ling Su to attack. Huai Baihua's eyes were about to pop out and he let out a sorrowful cry. Ling Su muttered to himself. Tang Tian looked at old man Fei. The figure behind the sand dune frantically retreated, but the silver aura seemed to suddenly explode in front of him. A burst of fierce and sharp qi headed straight for his face. This person was shocked. Between life and death, he flipped the folding fan in his hand, bringing forth a dazzling multicolored fan aura, blocking in front of him. Ling Su was indifferent and said, "Victory or defeat in the battlefield is just and honorable. If you're afraid of death, why come? It's good that you're here. It saves me the trouble of finding you. I'll settle you. It's one less trouble." Old man Fei reluctantly retracted his gaze. On the sand dune, Ling Su looked at the frantically sprinting figure. His orange-red eyes were ice cold. Could it be that the techniques in the dream were all real? Run. Old man Fei stared at Tang Tian anxiously. Ling Su's body trembled and Flamingo retreated 7 steps before stabilizing itself. Flamingo's head was not big and its body was not sturdy, but its speed was extremely fast, and the flames on its body formed a long fiery tail. Ling Su, who was on the back of the bird, did not move an inch. Other than the killing intent on his face, there were no ripples. "I'll buy." Tang Tian agreed. But to be able to see it, it was good enough. Old man Fei leisurely drank his tea, his face full of satisfaction. In front of him were a few silver treasures. The reason why he brought Tang Tian to this shop was because he heard that old Zhang had a treasure that he could not bear to take out normally. But he never thought that old Zhang's treasure was actually a gold-ranked treasure. A crescent-like crescent killed its way into the sea of stars. Hua Yang clenched his teeth. He wanted to use the same trick again, but in the next moment his soul flew away. The true power in his body seemed to have fallen asleep and was unable to be activated. "Is one enough? Let's look again, see if we can buy a few more, boss. Do you have any more?" He did not even spend 10 million star coins, so Tang Tian was not satisfied. Blood meridians, mechanisms, whatever, Tang Tian did not understand, but he knew one thing: you get what you pay for. Sai Lei's mechanical techniques where he had to spend money, Tang Tian would never discount. Furthermore, Old Man Fei's workshop was related to the mystery of the blood meridians in his body. Chapter 296. Ambitious and ruthless person. You should rub your chin with a face full of regret and say, "What a pity, since it's like that I will just buy a few. The heavens have pity on me." Bell immediately injected a strand of true power into Old Man Fei's body. Old Man Fei finally woke up and the first thing he said was to stammer to Tang Tian, "Master, are you really buying it for me?" Old Man Fei nodded his head in agreement. He felt that Old Zhang's words were exactly what he was thinking and immediately said, "Master, with this gold energy plate it is enough." But thinking about it, he did not know how to spend it and did not know how to spend it. He turned to Bell and said, "Wake him up." Tang Tian did not care much about the 1.5 billion, but he cared about whether or not he could solve the blood meridians mystery. He decided to first give the unreliable blood meridians specialist a wake-up call. Is this guy even reliable or not? Old Man Fei immediately fainted again. Even Bell's hand could not help but tremble. As expected, Old Man Fei was excited to the point of tears and mucus. Even the white hair on his head was steaming. He was so excited that his entire body was trembling. Tang Tian still had some surplus. 1.2 billion. Buy it for me. Buy it for me. He willingly expressed his loyalty. A person who no one had ever paid attention to suddenly receive such respect, he was already satisfied. Bell immediately pulled Old Man Fei and followed behind Tang Tian. Old Man Fei laughed foolishly upon thinking about the gold energy plate. He was extremely happy, extremely satisfied. Old Man Fei's eyes darkened and almost fainted again. Tang Tian looked ahead and said, "For a star treasure used by a blood meridian specialist, where can I buy it?" No, Old Man Fei was no longer poor. He had struck it rich. Tang Tian ignored Old Man Fei and directly asked Old Zhang, "You really don't have it?" "No." Tang Tian said without hesitation. "I, Old Man Fei, have finally met a wise master." Thinking about all these years of mocking and ridicule, there was finally someone who recognized his worth and valued him. It was not empty words, but real gold and white teeth of 300 million star coins. Even before the laboratory was completed, the owner was already willing to invest 300 million star coins. It could be seen how much the owner valued him and how much trust he had in him. Not necessarily, but not by much. Old Man Fei rubbed his palms together. He had been here for so long, how would he not know what family was hiding? The warning words entered Old Man Fei's ears, causing his face to turn white. With a howl, he fainted again. It was rumored that all ambitious and ruthless people had superb acting skills. Suddenly Old Man Fei spoke. "Master, we are not going to the Sky Treasure Room." Tang Tian snorted coldly. "Don't count on luck. Think about it carefully. What are you going to buy with the remaining 1.2 billion? No matter what, I have to spend this 1.2 billion today." Thinking about it, Old Man Fei did not know what the master had the final say. Blood Meridian's research was always full of coincidences. Master has the final say. Old Man Fei raised his head. How much does Master intend to spend? The adults have the final say. What would the 1.5 billion laboratory be like? Old Zhang's heart was already filled with admiration for Tang Tian. Look at him, his actions, his tone, how determined. It was simply powerful and resonating. It was sufficient to show his determination. It was as firm as steel. What else did it mean? It meant that he valued Old Man Fei, respected Old Man Fei, and was a trusted aide. This breadth of mind, this boldness, these methods, the bespectacled orangutan young man in Old Zhang's heart, immediately became tall and deep. Even the ugly orangutan mask, the absurd spectacles, suddenly became stylish and meaningful. This ambitious and ruthless person. Your lines are wrong. At that time he gave Sai Lei and Bing roughly 3 billion, 2 purple gold grade cards, spending 500 million, adding the star rocks used for training. Tang Tian had roughly 1.5 billion left. Tang Tian's simple thinking was, 500 million was definitely faster than 300 million and 1.5 billion was definitely faster than 500 million. Old Zhang was filled with admiration for Tang Tian's methods. If it was previously when Tang Tian said such bold words, Old Man Fei would feel that he only knew how to boast and was not reliable. But after spending 300 million to say such words, it was truly a good method. Tang Tian said in a deep voice. You better think about it now. What treasures can shorten the time you need to unravel the blood meridians? What treasures? He did not want to think about it, this one. 5 billion. He planned to invest it all into the blood meridians laboratory. Old man Fei's face was covered in tears. Tyrant, we don't want to be friends anymore. Go to Sky Treasure Room. Tang Tian said. Bye for me. Thinking about Sai Lei's laboratory and Bing's training camp, he spent 3 billion in one go. Old man Fei's blood meridians laboratory, even if he spent 1.5 billion, it would still be the same. Old man Fei was startled, his face became even redder and his body trembled even more. A tyrant who threw out 300 million star coins in one go would definitely not come to his small shop. Those who worked in small shops were all poor wretches like old man Fei. With a flip of the hand it was like the clouds, with a flip of the hand, it was like the rain. Old man Zhang praised in his heart and immediately cooperated. Master must be joking, for such a gold-treasured weapon, how can it be so easily found? This is also old man Fei's good luck, to meet a master with such foresight. Money lost can be earned again. Fei. Sky Treasure Room. That place was so expensive that it made people's hair stand on end. He had never been there before, only high-end treasures were sold there. Belle, who was beside him, jumped in fright and immediately picked it up. Checking it, she heaved a sigh of relief. I was just too excited and fainted. Continue acting. Your acting is so real. The pitiful old man Fei used his poor and pitiful imagination and could not imagine what a 1.5 billion laboratory would look like. Old man Fei had always been at the bottom. He trembled. Master, enough. This item was enough. Master has so much trust in old man Fei. Old man Fei will definitely not. Old man Fei finally recovered from Tang Tian's threat. He could tell the master was definitely not joking. If he did not complete the task, then he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Hearing the unkind tone in the master's voice, old man Fei immediately kept quiet out of fear. Tang Tian raised his hand, cutting off old man Fei's words, and turned to ask Boss Zhang, are there any other treasures of this grade? Old man Fei's eyes were red, his killing intent soaring. Tang Tian retracted his gaze, his mind calculating how to throw in 1.2 billion. Best actor. Find me and ask me what counts. Tang Tian's tone was unkind. Why was this guy so stupid, only asking such meaningless questions? Boss Zhang was dumbstruck. Nonsense. Other than fighting, Tang Tian was definitely not a patient person. Why was this guy even more stupid than a Maori? Such a simple question, why did he have to ask it so many times? But 1.5 billion. Old man Zhang felt as though he was witnessing the rise of an ambitious and ruthless person. Listening to him without even blinking, he spent 300 million star coins for old man Fei, and even said he would buy more. How could this old man Fei not be dead set on him? What was that phrase again? A gentleman would die for his bosom friend. Old man Fei was truly giving his all. That's right. Tang Tian spat out 2 words. Finally asking a more reliable question, Tang Tian praised him. I intend to spend another 1.2 billion. He then added, but there are a few good auxiliary artifacts. There can't only be one secret room in the laboratory. Facing the master's gaze that looked like he was looking at an idiot, old man Fei's entire body started to tremble, a flush of red appearing on his face. Hearing the words Sky Treasure Room, old man Fei finally regained his senses and asked in disbelief. That master, are we really going to Sky Treasure Room? Seeing Tang Tian straightforwardly taking out the card worth 300 million star coins, old man Zhang's mind was numb. 300 million star coins, if it was the item it would be worth the price, but he had kept it for so many years, countless people drooled over it but no one bought it. Then what was he hesitating for? 1.5 billion. But Tang Tian was not satisfied. Like the grade of the gold energy plate? Tang Tian was excited. Seeing it today, it was indeed so. Tang Tian panicked. Other than being dizzy, this guy kept asking idiotic questions. Maybe it was another person? Old man Fei said embarrassedly, nope. He immediately explained, Master, it's an unknown thing, to solve it no one can say for sure. Old man Zhang's heart was in turmoil, but his expression was firm. He said without hesitation, nope. The 3 of them walked on the street. Why? Tang Tian was taken aback. Old Man Fei muttered to himself, "What master says counts. What master says counts." Oh, Tang Tian was surprised. "Even if I say it, it counts?" Old Man Fei slowly woke up. The days of ups and downs, he felt that he was about to collapse. His face was bitter and he asked pitifully, "Master, I don't want one. 5 billion, can I?" Tang Tian turned his head in astonishment. He did not expect Old Man Fei to ask such an idiotic question. After thinking for a while he replied, "To buy treasures for you. Let me say the ugly words first. I'm throwing one. 5 billion on you. You have to live up to this one. 5 billion if you are slow and can't get any results after half a day. Humph humph." Old Man Fei was woken up again. The intense excitement rushed into his mind. He could no longer resist and with a cry he fainted. Boss Zhang looked at the empty shop and could not react. "That master, why are we going to Sky Treasure Room?" Old Man Fei asked weakly. "Wake him up." Tang Tian's tone was unkind again. "Go," Tang Tian said and straightforwardly turned around. "Wake him up." Tang Tian clenched his teeth and said. But he did not know about the blood meridians before, but after knowing, it became the most important thing in his heart. Ambitious and ruthless. Old Man Fei hesitated for a while then asked, "Master, how long do you think is suitable?" Old Man Fei had already regained his composure. Stretching his head out, pulling back his head, he finally saw the situation clearly and said, "Master, although Sky Treasure Room's items are not bad, but it is too low value. Let's sweep through all the small shops in Yong'an City, master. Don't look at these small shops, but every shop will have 1 or 2 treasures. It will be more worth it than buying from Sky Treasure Room." Belle glanced at Old Man Fei, who was still immersed in joy, and quickly replied, "Sky Treasure Room should have them, but I don't think there are many." Only Belle sensed that something was amiss. The reason why she could see it was because she knew with the boss's intellect, it was basically impossible for him to buy people's hearts. He did not say anything. A nouveau riche bringing a country bumpkin would never be able to enter Sky Treasure Room. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.